A firestorm is about to hit after Championship Saturday. Where will all the teams fall and who is in and who is out? Find out now on Eagle Eye's Bowl Selection Special. Afternoon and welcome to College Football Bowl Selection Special powered by Eagle Eye TV. I'm Sara Palczewski along with Ryan Lavoie and Hayden Desmond. We have Brooks Childress live in the newsroom to bring us updates throughout the show. So guys, after Championship Saturday, we have some major shakeups headed our way today in college football's playoff rankings. Let's start with a recap of the winners and losers of Championship weekend, starting, with the game that kicked it all off.
In the Pac-12, kicking off the championship season was USC kicking Stanford to the curb 31-28 to take the West Coast title.
Moving to the AAC, with the unbeaten UCF Knights look to stay perfect over number 20 Memphis. The Knights, coached by Scott Frost, remained perfect, winning a double overtime thriller 62-55.
The Heisman frontrunner looking to capture the Big 12 title for the first year of its return over TCU. Baker Mayfield and the Sooners steamroll over TCU 41-17.
Heading over to the Mountain West, Fresno State ranked 25th heading into this one against Boise State. Boise State takes the Rocky Mountains and the Mountain West title in a close one, 17-14.
In the SEC, number 2 Auburn hope to continue their party crasher roll in the SEC Championship, facing familiar foe Georgia. The Bulldogs stunned the Tigers 28-7 to win the Southeastern Conference.
Hopping up the East Coast to Charlotte with number 1 Clemson still hoping to repeat their national title, facing the revitalized Miami. Clemson would prove too much for Miami, taking the ACC 38-3.
Finally, for the big boys up north in the Big Ten, with unbeaten Wisconsin facing Ohio State. Ohio State makes their final push for the college football playoff, knocking off the Badgers 27-21.
So, lots of shakeups headed your way today in the polls. We check in with Brooks in our newsroom to hear what social media has to say following Championship Saturday. Good morning, Brooks.
Morning, Sarah. I'm standing here in the Eagle Eye newsroom. We're talking about the top 6 big shakeups yesterday. Let's take a look now at some of our social media, shall we? Of course, we've got Sports Illustrated got an article up today about who should be in, Alabama or Ohio State. Big debate right now. Twitter is blowing up about the Ohio State-Alabama debate. Who deserves more to be in, who's got the better resume right now, who will perform better in the playoff. Moving around, as you can see, Clemson football hosting their watch party currently right now at the Reeves Football Ops Complex on Clemson University. There are parties like this going on all across the nation. Oklahoma, Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, everyone is getting in on the action. Now, we'll send it back to you in the studio, Sarah. This is your social media update.
Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on Twitter, Brooks, and we will be coming back to you throughout the show. Now, we are just moments away of finding out who our top 5, top 6, who's in and who's out. Well, there's a lot of debate of who should be in and who should be out. So if you have questions, we got your answers. We'll give you our best guesses as who gets the top 4 and who just sits a bit outside. Straight ahead.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Well, it's been a wild ride these last few months, and we are finally here on Selection Sunday. So, guys, where do you think everyone is going to go? We'll start with you, Ryan.
Well, I think that number one's going to be pretty obvious. I think Clemson's going to nail it down. Big win in the ACC championship. I think number 2 will be Oklahoma. They also took care of TCU in the Big 12. I think number 3 will be Georgia. Came in number 6. The convincing win over Auburn, only one loss. I think they'll be number 3. Number 4 and number 5 has been the big debate. I think that Alabama will hold down number 4. I think that loss against Iowa and for Ohio State is just too much to overcome. I think if they had beaten Wisconsin by a big margin, they could have jumped into number 4, probably would have, but a close win, not convincing enough to overwrite the Iowa loss. So I think they'll be number 4. I think Alabama will be number 4, Ohio State will be number 5, and then I've got USC jumping up to 6, being the Pac-12 champion, the committee rewarding them for winning a conference championship.
All right, Hayden, what about you?
You know, my list is very similar. I agree with you that Clemson definitely had the most impressive win last night, so I would put them at the number 1 spot. Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield was just too much for TCU. I'm moving them up to number 2. Georgia, I moved them up to number 3 with their big win over Auburn. And at number 4, I do have Alabama. I think that their resume is a little better than Ohio State's, especially with the big loss in Iowa, like you said. Number 5, I do have Ohio State. And number 6, I have Auburn.
All right. Now, back to the newsroom. We got Brooks. What are your picks, Brooks?
Well, as you can see, mine were a little spoiled earlier. But here's my top 6 as I see it. I think Clemson remains number 1. They've had a great year. They've beaten some quality teams. They beat Florida State, which some can debate is quality or not. I think it's a quality win. They beat Auburn. They think they stay at number 1. They had a dominating performance over Miami yesterday. Oklahoma, they've been great all year. They slipped a little bit against Ohio State and Iowa State, but they've rebounded, beat handily TCU twice. I'm going to say Alabama number 3 because, hear me out, it is a marquee matchup. You put Oklahoma versus Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. That's a rematch of a Sugar Bowl from a few years ago where Oklahoma won, and you get the potential Alabama-Clemson 3rd rematch. Alabama's also only has 1 loss to an Auburn team that is very good this year. That's why I have them at 3. I've got Georgia at 4, the SEC champions. They have not as been impressive in my opinion. They've beaten Notre Dame, they've beaten Auburn, but in between there, they haven't had the best of resumes. I'm going to put Auburn at 5, slipping from 2 to 5. They've had a great resume, beating a number 1 at Georgia and a number 1 Alabama along the way, plus a quality win over a ranked Mississippi State team. And I'm going to put Wisconsin at number 6, just because they only have 1 loss, but up until this point, they haven't had the resume that everyone's been talking about, and the committee has been very hesitant to put them into the top 4. Finally put them in this week, and then you see what they do. They fall. So that is my top 6 right now. We'll send it back to Sarah in the studio. Sarah?
All right, thanks, Brooks. Well, my predictions are just about the same as everyone else's. And Hayden over here, I actually have the exact same top 6. I say Clemson gets it. Clemson has been powerful all season. Despite their loss to Syracuse early, I think Clemson clearly deserves the title, is the number 1 spot. And after that win over Miami, you kind of have to see they're in the best position right now. For number 2, I did go with Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield. They've earned their right for number 2 in the country. They should have been number 2 much longer, but at least they get it when it counts. Number 3, I have Georgia. Their 1 loss against Auburn. They come back. They basically kick Auburn's butt, and they deserve that. Again, number 4, I think Alabama gets it. Alabama has a much stronger resume than any other team. I mean, Alabama, honestly, their best win is over Mississippi State. But considering they play in the SEC has now possibly could have 2 teams in the top 4. And they have had teams, at least 3 teams in the top 6 the past few weeks. So Alabama's definitely in the much stronger conference over Ohio State. So that's why I put Ohio State on the outside looking in at number 5. They do have that win over Penn State, but I just don't think their loss against Iowa puts them in, and I have the Tigers dropping down to number 6. I mean, that might still be a little high for Auburn, but you never know. So after the break, we do have the picks. The picks are officially in from the College Football Playoff Committee. Who is in and who is out, coming straight ahead on Eagle Eye's Bowl Selection Special.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90-mile-per-hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Well, the College Football Playoff Committee has their picks in, and we got them for you. So, Ryan, kick us off number one.
Number one is the defending national champion Clemson Tigers, the winners of the ACC.
Number two, we have the Oklahoma Sooners.
Number three comes in the Georgia Bulldogs after their SEC championship title that they won yesterday.
And number four, the spot that was in question belongs to the University of Alabama. They claimed the spot over Ohio State. Alabama is the fourth team in, 11-1 on the season. They will be facing Clemson in the first round of the playoffs.
Number five, the first team out, Ohio State.
And finally, round out the top six, kind of a shocker, Wisconsin. The one-loss Badgers lost only in the Big Ten title, but they pretty much have a lot weaker schedule. So, obviously, lots of shakeup, lots of movement. We got a national title repeat match in the first round in the semifinals of the playoffs. So this one is going to be a wild one, guys. So what do you think? Committee do it right?
I definitely think the committee got this one right. I don't really necessarily agree with number six. I think Wisconsin might have fallen a little bit more, but I do definitely agree with the top five spots.
The big question everyone wanted to know was, would it be Ohio State or Alabama? And Ohio State had two better wins than Alabama's best win. Wisconsin and Penn State, better wins than Alabama's best win of either LSU or Mississippi State. But at the end of the day, losses matter and bad losses matter. And you cannot lose to an Iowa team, an unranked Iowa team, by 30-plus points. At the end of the day, you just can't do that. The first loss was acceptable, and no one's going to argue Oklahoma's an acceptable loss, but that matches up with Alabama's loss against Auburn. So you're basically deciding between a conference championship and a really bad loss, and the really bad loss outweighs the conference championship. The committee's tasked with getting the four best teams in, and I think most people would agree that is Alabama.
And, you know, I find it interesting, this whole playoff system was there to basically balance and make the conference championships matter a little bit more than they have in the past, so you don't have just one dominant conference and have multiple teams competing in the final, which begs the question, they put Alabama in, and they don't have a title, but Ohio State does have a title, and it's sitting right outside. So that really shows what these losses mean and what wins mean. So I think the committee got it right. I don't think there's any better way to say it. Alabama has deserved it and fought for it all season. You know, yes, they lost to Auburn, but Ohio State, they lost to Iowa. The committee's going to look at that. Iowa's unranked. Auburn has climbed their way to number 2, which they will most likely and definitely fall. Clearly, they are no longer in the top 6, but it's going to be an interesting ride we have going forward.
Yeah, you have the rematch of the national championship from the last 2 seasons in the semifinals, so we can't have a third straight year of a national championship, but they will play each other again. The teams are starting to get to know each other very well. It'll be a very exciting game. And then, you know, the 2-3 game, which is going to get a little less hype just because of the Alabama-Clemson rematch. But Oklahoma-Georgia is 2 contrasting styles, a spread, high-paced offense in Oklahoma and a physical, SEC tough defensive run team in Georgia. Very exciting matchups, in my opinion.
And I think, like you said, Georgia's very run up the middle, and they will ground and pound, and Oklahoma is not really like that. As we saw yesterday in the TCU game, Baker Mayfield wanted to air it out, and he proved that with 4 touchdown passes.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a wild run. So, That number 4 spot was widely debated over the past 24 hours, even over the past month, if we're being honest. So we're going to go back out to Brooks. God, what's Twitter saying out there, Brooks, about this number 4 and 5 start spots? And what are people saying? Did the committee get it right?
Well, we don't know. No one has a consensus. No, I don't think Twitter has devolved. They're arguing. No one thinks they got it right. Ohio State fans think they should have been in. Alabama fans think they should have been in. Of course, our top 4 right here. You get the the rematch of last year's national championship. Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, Georgia. That'll be a great matchup. And then on the other side, like I said, Alabama, Clemson. Everyone's arguing. Alabama, Ohio State arguing back and forth who should have been in. But we forgot about USC. USC fans are just a little bit perturbed that they are not included in the top 6 anywhere. They had a great resume. I'm not going to advocate either way. I'm not going to pick sides in this argument, but as you can see here, they are not the happiest of folks. So we'll send it back to you, Sarah. That's what's going on Twitter right now. Everyone's just arguing about if this was right.
Thank you, Brooks, for that update on Twitter and what the nation is saying about these top 6. Now, after the break, there has been lots of coaching changes. The committee still has yet to release numbers after number 6. So we will get back to those numbers. But before that, we will talk and break down this coaching carousel that has been madness for the last 2 weeks. If you have any questions, have ever asked yourself, what's going on at Tennessee? What's this coaching carousel? I am so confused about this rock at Tennessee. Well, we will try and help you understand straight ahead on Eagle Eye's Bowl Selection Special.
For all the papas out there, let's stop what we're doing and take a moment. A moment to be with our kids. They can be loud moments, goofy moments, sporty moments, dorky moments, kooky moments. Moments where we talk or walk or just hang out. It doesn't really matter. They all count because every time dads take a moment to be with their kids, well, it's pretty momentous. So let's all take a moment to make a moment today.
I'm Ferdinand. You look at me and think big. You think scary, but I'm a little misunderstood. Funny! Sorry, I almost killed you. We've all been misunderstood. I'm not a fighter.
I don't understand that at all.
Kids with learning and attention issues like dyslexia and ADHD are misunderstood too. Take the time to understand.
Best plan ever!
With the right support, everyone can reach their full potential because you can't judge a bull by his cover. Learn more at understood.org.
Well, the top 6 are in, but there have been lots of coaching changes going on throughout the country. So we're here to help you guys out and kind of get a grasp on what has been going on. So let's start with the most amusing, especially for the last month, Tennessee.
They've almost hired multiple coaches. The thing with Tennessee is I think they think of themselves more than what they actually are. I think they think they're a top 10 program and they're not. Everyone wanted John Gruden. Tennessee decides on a former Tampa Bay Buccaneer head coach, not the right one in the fans' opinion, with Greg Schiano. And so the fans say, no, we're not accepting this. And Tennessee actually listened to him. So they axed the deal with Greg Schiano. They then look into the services of Mike Leach at Washington State, and the former AD, John Curry, now former AD John Curry, was in talks to agree to a deal with Mike Leach, and then Phil Fulmer comes out of nowhere and sabotages the deal so that he can take over the athletic director position. He basically staged a coup. And so it's a absolute mess at Tennessee. And if I'm a head coach, I don't want to go into an environment like that because you're having so many problems with expectations set too high and fans losing interest, kind of fair weather fans, and the athletics office is a mess with the AD and now Phil Fulmer stepping in. I wouldn't want to go there. Even if you're a young up-and-coming head coach, it's a tough job right now. And so Tennessee is just in a world of hurt right now. A guy like Les Miles would seem to make a lot of sense. This is probably going to be his last coaching job. He just wants to coach. There's a report that he's had interest in the job. I don't see why you can't just bandage things for 5 or 6 years with a little older, experienced Les Miles. And then once you get the program on the right track, then you can go for a home run hire.
I definitely agree, but let's also not forget that Tennessee also did try to get the Oklahoma State head coach, the guy with one of the best hairdos in college football with the mullet out there. He was in talks to get a deal, and then it just fell apart at the last second. But I definitely do agree that Les Miles could come in and provide sort of an older, more experienced view and try to get that program back on track.
There was nothing wrong with Les Miles at LSU. The only thing wrong was similar to Georgia, maybe at the highest of expectations, the fact that Les Miles just could not beat Alabama. He went 9-3 every year. He was ranked every year. He went to the occasional BCS Bowl at the time, then New Year's Six Bowl. He was a good coach. He just wasn't elite for LSU standards. And I think a good, solid, steady head coach is exactly what Tennessee needs right now. Absolutely.
Tennessee is an absolute mess right now. Honestly, even being a reporter, do you want to set foot in Knoxville right now? Probably not, because you don't really know what you're going to get when you go into work. You never know. It's going to be very, very, very entertaining going on along the way. So let's talk about something that's kind of gone under the radar. Have you heard about Herman Edwards possibly going to Arizona State? You know, this is a huge move by Arizona State, and it's been not talked about at all. There's talks that Edwards is going to be announced as the head coach on Monday in a press conference. So why haven't we heard that much about that coaching change?
You know, Herm Edwards has been saying you play to win the game, and he hasn't been winning any games recently because he's been out of the coaching job. So it's going to be really good to see him go in, and he knows players at ASU, and he knows the program, so it's going to be good to see him go in.
It's an odd hire. Herm Edwards has not been in college for a very long time. I liken this a little bit. I kind of just thought of this to the situation that Alabama hired Avery Johnson to be their basketball coach. He had never coached in college. He had been in the NBA and had successes in the NBA, and Herm Edwards had some successes in the NFL and is now stepping into new territory. This is going to be very interesting. I like it from Arizona State's perspective because they've always been just a slightly above average Pac-12 program. And Herm Edwards has the potential to drag them through the mud and go 3-9, 4-8 and have no idea what he's doing. But he also has the potential with the NFL experience that he's had to recruit big-time names and say, hey, I know what it takes to get to the NFL, get unprecedented talent in Arizona State, and win at an unprecedented level. So I think this will not go deep. I don't think there's a middle ground for how this will go. I think it'll either go really poorly or really well. But I think it's worth the risk for a program that's kind of struggled to get on the top of the radar in the Pac-12.
Yeah, that one's definitely going to be interesting to see what that unfolds and if he actually does accept the job. I think it's a good hire by Arizona State. Pac-12 needs a little bit more of a boost right now. And they also did just add Chip Kelly to their coaching lineup at UCLA. So that is going to be another interesting thing. What do these big-name coaches mean for these programs out in Pac-12? Is Pac-12 now going to be the new SEC, Big Ten?
Well, the Pac-12 struggled the last few years. Obviously, they did not get a playoff team this year. Oregon did make it to the national championship and destroyed Florida State in the very first year, or I guess the year before the playoff. But that's the last time that, or actually that Florida State game was in the semifinal, and then Oregon got destroyed in the national championship game by Ohio State. But, you know, it's been a little bit of a troublesome time for the Pac-12. USC is usually the program in the Pac-12, and they've been good but not great, recovering from their NCAA violations a few years back. And so the Pac-12 is kind of in need of the elite team that can get in the playoff every year. And UCLA and Chip Kelly definitely has potential to do that. He did a great job at Oregon. He's going to have even a more allure recruiting-wise, being in Los Angeles, being in SoCal. So I think that Chip Kelly for UCLA is going to work out very well.
You know, I do like Chip Kelly out in UCLA. I think coaches who have not had the best success in the NFL, if they come back to college, take a few years, and build a program up, then if they need to go back to the pros, then that's something that they can do. But Chip Kelly out in UCLA, I know there was a report that Oregon's coach might be on the outs, and Herm Edwards out in ASU. I think the Pac-12 is going to be good in the years to come, but not up to the SEC level for the next few years.
Also, I'm a huge fan of how Chip Kelly basically announced his hiring at UCLA. Basically gets a call from ESPN and says, hey guys, I'm not coming into work today. So the news broke just because he said, I quit.
They had a very much so inside source on the UCLA hire.
Very much so. So that one was a great one to watch on that day. It was kind of fun to listen to just see, hey, so breaking news, Chip Kelly's not coming in. He just called and said he's not coming in to work. So he accepted a job out at UCLA. Now moving down to another big hire, and probably the biggest one we'll see all season out, Texas A&M bringing in Jimbo Fisher to turn that program around.
Yeah, Jimbo Fisher, look, he had a bad year at Florida State, but a lot of it was due to his Heisman dark horse candidate getting hurt in the first game of the year, DeAndre Francois. They went 6-6. They won yesterday against ULM, so not the season that Florida State's accustomed to, but he's had so many double-digit win teams there. He's won a national championship. Some would argue that maybe in hindsight, Jameis Winston kind of pulled Jimbo Fisher along for that. But Jimbo Fisher is still, in my opinion, one of the best coaches in college football. It's the home run hire that Texas A&M needed. They just poured $500 million into their facilities, into the new Kyle Field. And so I think with all that said, they needed a big name. They were not going to go the coordinator route. Kevin Sumlin did an all right job there, but they really need to take it up to that next level. And that's kind of the theme. A lot of teams are unhappy now with going 8-4, 9-3. They really want to get in the national championship picture. They feel like they can make the playoff now that 4 teams get in, not just 2. And so Texas A&M definitely, with the money they poured in, expects to be in that conversation. I think Jimbo Fisher will get them in that conversation in the near future.
I feel like A&M needed a coach who could coach during the second half of the season and not go 6-0 to start and then coast to the end like someone was known for doing. And I think Jimbo Fisher was definitely the right hire for this. But it's curious to see who's going to fill his void at Florida State.
Yeah, that is interesting. I also really kind of like how Florida State made a statement yesterday over ULM. I mean, it is ULM. They are not a Power 5 conference and can be considered one of the weaker teams. I mean, Auburn played them on the college football Saturday known as Cupcake Saturday. So if that says anything, but Florida State made a huge statement without Fisher. They absolutely destroyed ULM without any questions asked. So they might have a lot more fire next year. They might, I know Francois tweeted that he was very, very, very displeased with his coach leaving. His coach, Jimbo, did not apparently inform his players or tell them that they were leaving. So that one was a very interesting thing, but I think it's what Texas A&M needs. They, like you said, they have poured all that money, and now they gave Jimbo Fisher a nice paycheck for him. I mean, it would have been hard for Florida State to keep him when you're being offered $75 million. I know I would take it to leave Florida State. I'd take it to leave Auburn. I'd take it to leave this desk if I could. And I'm pretty sure everyone would agree with me. But now moving on to UCF's coach, Frost. He's Scott Frost. He's obviously going to his alma mater back in Nebraska. How do you think he handled his new coaching change? And I thought that one went pretty smoothly.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer for him. Struggled in his first year at UCF, but anytime you go undefeated at a Group of 5 school, you're going to make some headways. It was a no-brainer for Nebraska. It's where he's from. It is the potential to be a big program. It was in the 1990s. There was interest from Florida, but I think that everyone knew once Nebraska did fire Mike Riley, did contact Scott Frost, there was just no way that they were going to settle on anyone else, and no way that Scott Frost would want to go to Florida over his alma mater.
This is my favorite hire. I'm just going to come out and say it. I really like Scott Frost going back to Nebraska. After going 0-12 in 2015, he brought the program up, and they went 12-0 this year, and that is unheard of. So for him to go home and go back to Nebraska, where he's from, where he played for, I really enjoyed this hire, and I think that they're going to have a great season.
I think it's a really good hire as well. Now moving on to another Florida school, the Gators. They're bringing in Miss State's old coach. They're bringing in Mullen, who's known for coaching great quarterbacks. I think this is a very, very good hire. I mean, Florida has had tons and tons of potential. What do you guys think?
I really like this. I know that Dan Mullen was a quarterback coach when Tebow was there when they were winning national titles. So I think Dan Mullen going back to the Swamp would be really good, and to see them bring that program back up from a poor year this year by Florida standards, and to hopefully end up back towards the top of the SEC.
Not only did he coach Tim Tebow, he coached Chris Leak in that first national championship under Urban Meyer. Dan Mullen's been with Urban Meyer for a very long time, learned a lot from him. To do what he did at Mississippi State, to win 8 games consistently, to get them to #1 in the country very briefly with Dak Prescott, was really unprecedented for Mississippi State standards. And yes, he couldn't quite follow through and make a New Year's Six bowl necessarily, or stay in the top 10, but Mississippi State had unprecedented success on many fronts. And so Dan Mullen knows how to develop a quarterback, something Florida has not done since Tim Tebow. and I think it made a lot of sense for Florida. The only wild card was that Florida's AD was at Mississippi State, Scott Strickland, and there was some reports that they had some tension and tenuous relationship there at Mississippi State. So that was maybe the one snag, but they worked that out. And I think Dan Mullen is going to develop the quarterback, have a very good offense at Florida, and I think they'll be competing with Kirby Smart's Georgia team in the very near future.
Absolutely. With that being said, though, who's going to fill this void at Mississippi State?
Well, they did hire the offense coordinator from Penn State. I forgot his name. But, you know, someone brought a really good point to me. When you're a mid-level program, it's really hard to win playing great defense. Vanderbilt has tried it for years. They've been unsuccessful for years at doing it. The way to go is to have a really good offense. Ole Miss kind of did that with Bo Wallace and Chad Kelly and has some success. And Mississippi State has done that with Dak Prescott and Nick Fitzgerald now. So I think the way to go when you're a mid-level program like that is to have a big, high-flying offense, try and outscore the other team, because it's really hard to rely on your defense and then finally get manhandled after your piddly offense is not able to put up points on a bigger, stronger defense. And so I think going into the OC route, I don't know much about the Penn State offensive coordinator. He did have Saquon Barkley to work with this year, but I think that's the correct way, because they did go OC with Dan Mullen. That worked well, so keep doing what worked well the first time.
I definitely agree. Penn State did have a very good offense this year with Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley. So with the Penn State offensive coordinator coming down to Mississippi State, it'll be interesting to see how he can team up with Nick Fitzgerald to try and get them back to the promised land.
Absolutely. And now jumping to the other school in the state, they're pretty much Miss State's arch rival, Ole Miss. They hired their interim coach. What do you guys think of that hire? Was it just to appease people? I was kind of getting a feeling a lot of the fans didn't like that hire.
Yeah, a lot of fans didn't like the hire, but I think they have to keep in mind that you still had an impending NCAA investigation, which is now resolved. They're going to have another year of bowl ban and a big scholarship production. I think you had to keep in mind that not many coaches are going to want to jump ship, even if they're at a small Conference USA Sun Belt team, to go to Ole Miss when you're going to struggle really hard to get recruits. You're going to lose a lot of your current players because they're allowed to transfer without sitting out a year because of the bowl ban. You had a lot of things in play there, and so yeah, Matt Luke, you know, maybe not a big name. That was his first year as head coach, but honestly, not many people were expecting Ole Miss to do much this year anyway, and he got them to 6-6. They would have gone to a bowl if they were bowl eligible, but of course, self-imposed bowl ban. So I think Matt Luke did an admirable job. I think it's a very similar situation to Ed Orgeron. He is Ole Miss is Matt Luke's alma mater, and I think he did a fair job as interim. So I believe he deserves the chance to pull this program out from this NCAA investigation.
You know, it's hard not to hire the hometown guy, and he did very well this year, bringing them to 6-6. So I do agree with this hire. I think the fans weren't as happy as they could have been with it, but I think that, especially with the bowl ban, like Ryan said, it's going to be a good year for rebuilding.
You know, there's been lots of coaching changes in the SEC, mainly their marquee. There's that opening still in Arkansas. And there are a lot of rumors, if you guys know, about Auburn's head coach Gus Malzahn returning to his alma mater, potentially in the next 24 hours. What do you guys feel about that possible hire? Will Gus stay at Auburn, or will he leave?
So there was a report out about an hour ago. Arkansas is prepared to offer $7 million per year on about a 7-year contract. Gus Malzahn has that in his hand. He's likely going to go to Auburn and request something similar from Auburn. Auburn does have great resources. Maybe ask for a facilities upgrade. You know, a lot of people have said, why would you go to a lower level SEC job than what you're at? Well, it's home for him. We talked about, I watched Matt Luke's press conference at Ole Miss. He teared up. He was crying because it was his dream job because he's from the state of Mississippi. Gus Malzahn's dream job growing up was not Auburn. It was Arkansas. He grew up in that state. It's really hard, even at a lower level, to turn down what you dreamed about as a child. And so for Gus Malzahn to get the opportunity to coach where he's from, that's going to mean a lot to him. And Arkansas is not devoid of potential. Bobby Petrino had Ryan Mallett and Tyler Wilson get them into the top 10. They had really good seasons, even dating back to the early 2000s with Houston Nutt and Darren McFadden. They had some good teams. So Arkansas has the potential to be a top 25 team, to have the occasional special season. You know, it's not a terrible job at the end of the day, and for Gus to go home, it's really hard to say no to that. So if Auburn matches, I think he will stay, but it's going to be hard to, because right now his salary is just over $4 million. I mean, that's going to be a 60–70% increase in salary, and that's a pretty big increase. So we'll see. We might know today. A local Arkansas paper reported that they shouldn't have a head coach today, so we'll see. But obviously a lot of Auburn fans on pins and needles right now.
I definitely agree, and being a longtime Auburn fan, I know that we really like Gus. Gus got us to 2 national title games, one as an assistant, one as a head coach, coming out with one in 2010 with Cam Newton. But like we've mentioned with Scott Frost, it's hard not to go home, and especially when they're offering you that kind of money.
You know, I find it very hard for Auburn to offer Gus that money. Gus, yes, led him to the national championship as a head coach with Cam Newton, brought that title home, led him to one more, which they lost to Florida State. But other than that, his teams have been almost mediocre. They haven't been the best of the best. And I have been at Auburn for, about 4 years now. This is the first year that they have been relevant in the college football playoff talk. And I feel like Auburn has always been a top-notch program. How are you going to keep it there? And I feel like they don't think Malzahn is the man. I believe if Gus would have won the championship for the Tigers, they would have shelled out that money and brought it back. I think it's just going to be very hard I do not see Malzahn keeping this job unless Auburn shells out that same amount of money. Now, I did have the chance last night at the SEC Championship to talk to some of the players about this rumor, and Kerryon Johnson kind of seemed a little bitter about it. Like, he knew something was coming that he fully expects Malzahn. I remember he was asked about it and basically said, Malzahn's a grown man. He can do what he wants. It's up to him, whatever. I'm going to play here. I expect him to be here for all my years, but if he doesn't, whatever. He sounded just a tad bitter about the idea of his coach leaving him. So with that in mind, is that kind of a telltale sign that trouble's ahead for Auburn?
Like I said, Gus is really considering this. I don't think people took it seriously enough leading into the SEC Championship game. I think once Auburn beat Alabama, everybody said, okay, there's no way he's leaving now. He's in playoff contention. That was not true. And when so often in college football now, players are committing to coaches, not schools. Dan Mullen's already swayed a couple of his Mississippi State commits to go to Florida, and that's a sign. You're committing to a coach there. Now, I'm not saying Kerryon Johnson committed to a coach. He seems to love Auburn. He tweets about it all the time. He's an Auburn guy now. But it's very easy in this day and age to feel loyal to someone, and when you feel like you've committed yourself to a coach and not a program, and that coach does not feel committed to you, you feel shafted. I mean, you feel like you got the wrong end of the stick. And so, you know, like I said, I don't have a feel. It's honestly going to depend on what Auburn offers Gus probably today. But it's a strong consideration for him. And it was weird. I watched him and Christy Malzahn walk off the field at the SEC Championship game kind of embracing, and it just felt odd. I don't know what felt odd about it. It just didn't seem right. And so post-game press conference, I'm sure you know Sara, you know, he was asked, will you be the head coach at Auburn next year? And he said, I want to be.
And that is not an answer Auburn fans want to hear. They wanted to hear, yes, I will be.
Yes.
There's no I want to be. That basically, I felt that was the nail in the coffin.
Well, that said to me that, you know, I want to be if you give me the money I want. Like there's a little attachment to that. Like, you know, if you'll just do what I'm asking, then yeah, I want to be. But, you know, if you don't, then I'm gonna abandon ship and go home. So it's gonna be extremely interesting.
Yeah, it would be hard for Auburn fans to watch Gus go. Even though we have had some mediocre teams, it's been a good ride with him. But if he leaves, who fills the void? Who do they bring in?
You know, we will answer that question right after the break. We will bring Brooks in here to talk about it as well, and just kind of give an idea if Gus would leave. Who does Auburn have? That coming ahead on Eagle Eye's Bowl Selection Special.
I believe this is a practical world and that I can count only on what I earn. Therefore, I believe in work, hard work.
I believe in education, which gives me the knowledge to work wisely and trains my mind and my hands to work skillfully.
I believe in honesty and truthfulness, without which I cannot win the respect and confidence of my fellow men.
I believe in a sound mind, in a sound body, in a spirit that is not afraid, and in a clean sport that develops these qualities.
I believe in obedience to the law because it protects the rights of all.
I believe in human touch, which cultivates sympathy with my fellow men and mutual helpfulness and brings happiness for all.
I believe in my country because it is a land of freedom and because it is my home, and that I can best serve that country by doing justly, loving mercy,
and walking humbly with my God.
And because Auburn men and women believe in these things, I believe in Auburn and love it.
Fans, direct your attention to the flagpole for a special presentation.
You never really leave Auburn, because Auburn never leaves you.
All right, so we left off with this question from Hayden. If Malzahn were to leave Auburn, who would fill that void? We brought in Brooks from our newsroom just to help us get an idea of what Auburn fans have been saying about social media, to help get us an idea and allow us to answer these questions. Welcome in, Brooks.
Well, great to be here. I'm glad I get to finally join the crew. I've been out there all alone all day so far. But on the subject, Twitter, I've been looking at Auburn Twitter. Everyone, there's a debate. It's obviously debating if he's going to stay or he's going to go. Auburn fan, there's a majority that think he's going to leave after yesterday and after the money that has been thrown out that Arkansas may be willing to pay. But I don't know what's exactly going to happen. Obviously, like I said, everyone's debating it. People have been throwing out names of who they think is going to be. I've seen Les Miles. I've seen Lane Kiffin. I've even seen Memphis's head coach. His name escapes. Mike Norvell. I've seen his name thrown out there. I don't know. What do y'all think? Twitter is just having at it right now.
You know, I know who I want. I'm going to have to think a little harder about who I think that Auburn will actually go with, being that they don't have a current AD right now. I believe Stephen Leaf would handle that process. I know he would handle the contract process that was reported today, but I want Lane Kiffin. And he's so unlike the traditional Auburn hire that I just don't think it's realistic. But Lane Kiffin has learned something as a head coach. Florida Atlantic, yeah, it's a Conference USA school, but they have not been to a bowl game in several years. They've never competed for a Conference USA championship. And in 1 year, they've done all those things. They've gone 10-3. They've won the Conference USA championship. They've done it easily. They won the Conference USA title game by 27 or 30 points yesterday against North Texas. Should have won by more, but former Auburn Tiger John Franklin fumbled at the half-yard line, one of those drop it as you enter the end zone plays. But anyway, I think Lane Kiffin has learned something as head coach working under Nick Saban when he was the OC there. His offenses are dynamic. That's something that Auburn, Gus Malzahn has been good at. And with the right defensive coordinator, I would love Kevin Steele to stay. I don't know if a new head coach would keep him on or not. That's usually not the norm. But with another solid defensive coordinator, Auburn's got a lot of talent right now. I think that's undeniable. And I think Lane Kiffin, he had a rough time at USC, but he had NCAA violations. He had reduction in scholarships, and of course the expectations will always be as high as possible at USC. And so I think you can learn as a head coach. I mentioned that already. Will Muschamp has already done a much better job at South Carolina than he did at Florida, and so I really believe that Lane Kiffin has changed in a way that will help him win more often. I would love Lane Kiffin.
Can I join in on that? I am on that bandwagon. Bring Kiffin to Auburn. Yes, he is not the typical Auburn coach. Auburn coaches aren't as vocal, aren't as loud, aren't as even vocal on Twitter. If you go to Gus Malzahn's Twitter, he tweets the exact same thing all the time. So you never know what he is actually what it means. It is the same thing. Boom, War Eagle. Yeah. So you bring in Kiffin, you're getting a voice. You're going to have something fun. And I think Auburn might need a shakeup. Auburn has been teetering on the outside of a great program. I mean, they have been competing against the dynasty of Alabama that Saban has created, but I think to teeter on that edge and maybe knock off and start their own dynasty, I think they might need to bring a big heavy hitter like Lane Kiffin, who's going to be vocal, who's going to make a splash, in the NFL, that sometimes works to bring in the boisterous coach. Being a Buffalo Bills fan, the Bills brought in Rex Ryan. Good hire? No, but he made a splash. And it was something to potentially turn the program around and try and turn that whole entire team around to make the playoffs. It didn't work, but everybody knew Rex Ryan was going to be fun. And
the press conference were going to be great.
So if Auburn brings in Lane Kiffin, it's going to be fun. You are going to have that instant rivalry 10 times intensified against Alabama because Kiffin's going to want to beat his old coach, his old employer. He's going to want to do that. And you know what? He kind of alluded to he wants Florida Atlantic. He wants Bama. He said it's not fair to his players to want Bama, but he wants Bama. So if Auburn were to bring him here, he gets Bama. And I think that might be the best void that they can fill is with Lane Kiffin. Now, I mean, that's who I want. Do I know who they would actually hire? I have no idea. Maybe Les Miles is a decent hire. But, again, he teetered on the edge at LSU as well, so maybe not the best. It's going to be a hard one to fill.
You know, I really like the idea of Lane Kiffin coming here and being a vocal coach, and I do like the fact that it would get under Saban's skin. But I think that Auburn should make a run at Memphis as head coach. I honestly do believe. I think that the offenses are very similar in that they're high-scoring offenses, and I really like the system that he was able to implement. And we saw yesterday against UCF how they put up 55 points. So I think for them to be able to bring in a head coach who can score and then to build on a defense that we already have, I think would be the best situation for Auburn.
Mike Norvell's done a really good job at Memphis. My only concern with him is, you know, he's been at Memphis 2 years now, and the coach before him had also gotten Memphis on the map and gotten them ranked, Justin Fuente, who took the job at Virginia Tech. So I wonder, and 2 years is now a little bit more telling that Mike Norvell seems to be able to sustain it, but I wonder if some of that is piggybacking off of the fact that Justin Fuente had built something really good there. So, you know, never having a big job, you never know for sure how they're going to react. And I'll throw in one more thing on Lane Kiffin. It's been widely reported in recent weeks as the Lane Kiffin, the Tennessee, heated up a little bit, or at least the desire for that to happen. Lane Kiffin it's been reported that he told Nick Saban after Tennessee lost to Alabama in his 1 year at Alabama, he said, "I will never lose to you again." So maybe he'll never face him again, but, you know, and therefore not lose. But that right there, even though Lane Kiffin worked for Nick Saban, shows you the kind of fire he has, the passion for winning. And you're right, Sarah, if Lane Kiffin ever gets a chance at Nick Saban again, Lane Kiffin will not sleep that entire week. He'll be in his office drawing up everything he can because he will be so motivated to beat Alabama, and that would be fun to see.
No, I think it'd be really, really great. And also think, if Malzahn were to leave, Malzahn built a pretty solid base at Auburn. Yes, the Tigers are going to lose Braden Smith on the offensive line, some key offensive line people, maybe some key defensive people. They're going to lose Daniel Carlson, but they don't really have to worry. His little brother's in the wings to take over, probably right where he left off. But you have to think Kerryon Johnson is going to come back. He does not really answer that question. I think after that injury, I think he wants to be back. I think he wants to bring that title to Auburn. I think he will come back. And then you have the question of Jeff Holland possibly coming back. But you have Jarrett Stidham coming back, who has started to play his best football. Take out the SEC championship game where he wasn't getting much protection, but he's been playing his best football and has continually gotten better. You can only imagine the next coach, they're going to have a pretty sweet setup. This team looks almost poised to make a run at the title next year. Even without Malzahn, if you don't even have a head coach, this team might actually make the playoff.
And that's something Les Miles struggled with, because I know we mentioned him. Les Miles struggled with at LSU, as some coaches have recently. He never had the offense necessary to take that next step. He always had good defenses. But you wonder if he steps into a situation with Jarrett Stidham, an established quarterback that will at least be here 1 more year. If he doesn't go pro, be here 2 more years. You wonder if he will be able to, since he finally has a quarterback and he has a base with defense, he has a lot of great receivers, if he'll be able to take Jarrett Stidham, kind of like how he took Matt Flynn right after Nick Saban left LSU, and lead them to an elite year and maybe a national championship. Because when he did have a really good quarterback, which was rare, LSU was really good. When they didn't, he was a run-first team. It got one-dimensional. It didn't really work, and their offenses were anemic. But with Jarrett Stidham already there, I think that would be the best quarterback that Les Miles has had probably since Flynn, and that would be very interesting to see with a defense that's already got a good base.
All right, Brooks, what else can you tell us that's been going on Twitter that we can help answer these questions?
Well, it's just like I've been saying, everyone's just arguing with each other about, especially about this Alabama-Ohio State deal. Everyone's arguing about it. Twitter is a mess. It's like it is every time there's a crisis.
Anytime there's anything, honestly.
One of the biggest things I've seen.
A tree could blow over in Auburn, and it would be a crisis. Or, in the case of the raccoon takeover of Auburn of, what was that, 2015? So.
Or the white squirrel from very recently.
We also have that one. So, what is making this one so much crazier than usual?
I think it's because of the way he answered the questions last night when he was asked. Like y'all talked about, he didn't answer them directly like, I am going to be here. I am going to be a head coach here at Auburn. I want to be, he answered, I want to be. That's what's kind of fueling this debate. And people are like, oh, well, that's just because of a new AD coming in. Maybe the AD won't keep him around. And then others are like, no, that's because he wants to be paid more. And if Auburn doesn't pay him more, he's going to Arkansas. So that is what is really fueling this debate, is people arguing back and forth. It's like, no, he's going to stay. No, he isn't going to stay, because of how he answered the questions last night in his press conference.
I must say, one of my favorite tweets I've seen, we do have Twitter pulled up in front of us so we can kind of get a feel of what's going on, so we can help answer any questions you guys have. But somebody made this fantastic graphic. You have way too much time on your hands because I cannot work Photoshop, but here's to you for making this graphic on Google Translate, and it's quotes Gus Malzahn directly saying, I'm the head coach at Auburn, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this can go, what we've built in the future. Translation to English, I am going to Arkansas.
Oh, no.
So, there's a lot of fans saying, well, Gus, what you said yesterday, that is the nail in the coffin. I must say, Twitter has been absolutely hilarious today.
Oh, it's like I said, it's Twitter after any sort of like big event happens. People are serious at first, and then it kind of evolves into more jokes and more GIFs, and everyone just going nuts.
You know, the GIFs are probably the best part of this. It kind of makes it a lot more fun. But thank you for coming in here, Brooks. We will definitely toss it back out to you when we finally get the rest of the rankings coming in, hopefully within the next hour. Also getting some more bowl selections. I think we do already have one bowl selected and released. We will talk to you about that, and a topic Ryan is very confident on. So we will answer more questions, kind of tell you what is going on in the bowl outlook and what are these college playoff games going to look like. We got all that for you straight ahead.
Cool.
Recently, our country has witnessed catastrophic devastation. Hurricanes and flooding have upended lives and livelihoods.
Across this great country, Americans have answered the call.
That special calling that compels us, when others are down, to step up and do whatever it takes.
America's at her best when, against all odds, we come together and lift each other up.
Please donate to oneamericaappeal.org. America needs you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Well, before we get into more breakdown of the playoff games to come and the first bowl game matchup announced, all you Tiger fans, you definitely don't want to relive this one. But for all you Bulldog fans out there, here are some highlights from the Georgia SEC Championship win last night, courtesy of Auburn Athletics from the SEC.
Ball teed up just inside the near hash. Rodrigo Blankenship holds up his left hand, takes a 10-yard run on it, puts his foot into it, and kicks it high and deep and out of the end zone. I think we're going to see a lot of that. In motion, Ryan Davis. Here's Kerryon Johnson on his first carry. Breaks one tackle, and he falls ahead out to the 45-yard line. A nice run by Kerryon Johnson. Stove in motion. He gives it to Eli Stove. Turns it upfield. Speeds ahead. Into the 45. Into the Georgia 35-yard line. Second and a long 6 for Auburn. Fake it to Johnson. Here's Stidham. Stidham has to spin out. Throws it downfield. Pass is caught! Inside the 15 at the 10-yard line. Chandler Cox. Hastings in motion. Play action to Johnson. Throws it in the end zone. Nate Craig Myers for the second straight week. Touchdown, Auburn! Play action. Fromm goes down. Back at the 46-yard line. Trey Matthews with the sack. Shotgun snap to Fromm. Here comes pressure, and down he goes again! All the way back at the 44-yard line, Dontavius Russell this time. Back split around Fromm in a shotgun. And Chubb, and he stood up in the backfield and brought down at the 31-yard line. Stidham with plenty of time, now runs. Left, 30. Lowers his shoulder to the 34-yard line. That's close to a 10-yard gain. 10 yards on a scramble. Auburn going quick. Stidham lobs the screen over the top to the left side and out of bounds. Making the catch at the 40-yard line of Georgia is Eli Stove. Here comes the blitz. Stidham's got to scramble out. Stidham throws up. Field pass is caught. Davis, 35-40. Hit at the 42, breaks a tackle. He's at midfield down the far sideline. And that's a big Auburn first down into Georgia territory. Here's the toss to Kerryon Johnson around right end. Turns up the field, and he's slung to the ground out of bounds. That's got to be a late hit. Oh, man. To throw on first down with plenty of time. Fires left. Pass is caught. Ryan Davis inside the 20, dropped at the 19. That's another Auburn first down.
That game last night was definitely a rough one for the Auburn Tigers and a total great one for the Georgia Bulldogs. They had nothing to lose in that game. So how did you guys think that game went for both teams?
You know, I think after the 40-17 whooping that Auburn gave Georgia a couple weeks ago, they definitely had more time to prepare, and it seemed like they studied a little bit extra, so they were ready for Auburn and the offense that we brought to the table.
Georgia clearly studied the Iron Bowl tape because if you noticed in the Iron Bowl, Alabama didn't run much, but when they did and when they ran effectively, they ran outside the tackles. And Georgia had started the game with 2 straight toss plays. They continued to run the same toss play 9 or 10 times throughout the course of the game. Auburn really only stopping it once or twice. Georgia continued to run outside the tackles, something they didn't necessarily do in the first game. And Auburn had some problems. Now, granted, I mean, they only gave up 28 points. One of them was a big play when they were demoralized in the fourth quarter. So the defense was not the problem. It was clearly offense. But I'm just saying that Georgia had a better offensive game plan. And the game mimicked the 2014 game in Athens. If you'll recall, Auburn, that was the second year of Nick Marshall, the year after the national championship game. And Auburn led that game 7-0. They went right down the field in Athens, took a 7-0 lead, stopped Georgia, got the ball back, and then were stopped on I think like a 3rd and 1 or something, and they didn't score the entire rest of the game. They lost 34-7 and never recovered. And it was the exact same thing. Jarrett Stidham and the guys were in the red zone. Auburn fumbles, Jarrett Stidham fumbles, and the momentum swings, and Auburn's never the same. They get in scoring range once more, get a field goal blocked. It was just all downhill from there, and so it felt a lot like that 2014 game to me from that point.
You know, I want to point this out. In Auburn's first meeting against Georgia, first drive of their game, goes down, scores. After that, momentum switches. I feel like it was a mirror of the exact start of that game. Auburn goes down, first drive, scores. That's it. it was very hard to see. The game was lost on the offensive and defensive lines. It was lost on the line of scrimmage. There was no question Georgia was pushing Auburn wherever they wanted to go. I remember I was sitting up in the press box. Jared Sims gets the ball, has about a second between the snap and somebody in his face, at least for the whole second half. People were missing blocks. People were getting pushed. I've never seen Braden Smith and Austin Golson get pushed around so much. I do remember talking to the offensive line and saying that field at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it was going to be hard to get a grip on, which, I mean, I did offer being a reporter as a nice person saying, do you need new cleats? Like, does somebody need to run out to Dick's Sporting Goods in Atlanta and buy you guys better cleats? So you would have thought during their walkthrough they kind of would have figured out, okay, this is how to get a grip on this. But clearly they didn't. Or Georgia just wanted it more. Hayden, what do you think about that game?
I was fortunate enough to be in downtown Auburn watching the game at a restaurant, and the 2 Georgia fans that were in there were thoroughly enjoying the game after the first quarter. But for the rest of us in there that were Auburn fans, emotions were up and down. There were some good plays, and then like Sara said, when the O-line doesn't have any time, or the quarterback doesn't have any time to process his reads and go through and make the throws that he needs to, it's just not going to be a good time for anyone on Auburn.
And Georgia ended up with 2 sacks, but they had pressure on every play. It felt like a reverse role when Auburn had pressure on Jake Fromm in the first meeting almost every play. Auburn defensive line was disappointing to me. I mean, yes, we talked about the offensive line. That was clear. Jared Stidham never had time to set and make a play down the field. But, you know, the Auburn defensive line really dominated the first meeting here in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And they had 2 sacks on the second drive that Georgia had. They did not have another sack the rest of the night. And it felt like they really didn't have pressure the rest of the night. And that was really what caused a poor performance from Jacob Fromm in the first game. He went 13 of 28. In this game, he was very efficient. He was very good. And I think that the line of scrimmage just completely flipped to 180. And it was frustrating because I think that everyone assumed, even if Kerryon Johnson was not healthy, that Auburn would be able to win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And I feel like they lost the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
You know, I am going to break in with this. I did just receive an email of possibly SB Nation putting out some of the bowl games that have been announced. Whether they are true or not, we do not know. ESPN has yet to announce them yet. But some of the main headlining bowls is the Orange Bowl, which will feature Miami and Wisconsin. Whether this is an accurate reporting is unknown. They are saying for the semifinals of the college football playoff, Rose Bowl goes to Oklahoma and Georgia, and the Sugar Bowl goes to Clemson and Alabama. Which the Sugar Bowl, if that stands, will almost be a home game for Alabama. It's not that far, but those are some of the bowl games being reported. Whether these are true, we do not know, but they will start leaking as it gets closer to some of the smaller bowl games coming out. Schools getting calls, hey, we would like you to accept this bid. We are unsure, but there is one bowl game we are sure of, and after the break, we will tell you what bowl that is. Especially if you like warm places and if you are a reporter covering one of these teams. Well, you're going to enjoy this bowl game for sure. And Ryan knows plenty about this. After the break, we will go over to Brooks Childress in the newsroom to talk about this game with our own Ryan Lavoie.
I believe that this is a practical world.
And that I can count only on what I earn.
Therefore, I believe in work.
Hard work.
I believe in education,
which gives me the knowledge to work wisely
and trains my mind and my hands to work skillfully.
I believe in honesty and truthfulness,
without which I cannot win.
The respect and confidence of my fellow men.
I believe in a sound mind.
And a sound body.
And a spirit that is not afraid.
That is not afraid.
Not afraid.
And in clean sports
that develop these qualities.
I believe in obedience to law.
Because it protects the rights of all.
I believe in the human touch.
Which cultivates sympathy with my fellow men.
And mutual helpfulness. And brings happiness for all.
For all.
For all.
I believe in my country.
Because it is a land of freedom.
And because it is my own home.
And that I can best serve that country.
By doing justly,
loving mercy,
and walking humbly with my God.
And because Auburn men
and women
believe in these things.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn and love it.
Well, with some of the bowls starting to come out and be leaked by sources, we also are now going to touch on the one bowl that has been decided for a couple of weeks now. We're going to go to Brooks Childress to tell us about that bowl out in the newsroom. Brooks? So this upcoming bowl, Ryan, what can you tell me about this bowl? It is going to be where? What makes this bowl special?
So it's going to be in the Bahamas, and I must admit I'm a huge UAB fan growing up in Birmingham. That's rare, so this UAB team obviously lost their football program a few short years ago, did not play football for 2 years. And to be quite honest, to be 8-4, their first year back, 8-4 is the best year that UAB's had in their entire history. They've not been around as long, but they've been around since about 1990 or so, and they've never won 8 games in a season. They've never won this many Conference USA games in a season. They won 6, they went 6-2. They were actually 1 game away from playing Florida Atlantic in the Conference Championship game. Bill Clark has done an incredible job with that program. Their running back, Jordan Brown, broke the UAB record for freshman rushing yards that was owned by current NFL running back Jordan Howard. So a lot to talk about with UAB. UAB's had a really special season, and it might not seem like much. We go to Auburn. You know, Auburn's trying to compete for national championships. UAB's just trying to make bowl games. But for that program, after it got killed, to come back this strong, it's a testament to that coaching staff and to the players who they committed to a school they could not play on Saturdays for 2 years. That says a lot about the kids' character, and really excited for them, be rooting for them. Should be a fun time for them, and to go to the Bahamas after all they've been through, I'm so happy for that program.
So we did have some technical difficulties getting back out to Brooks, so now we are finally going to go back to Brooks to talk about this bowl game he has been talking about for weeks in the office. So, Brooks, what can you tell us about this bowl game and add on to what Ryan has said? And actually, what are you most looking forward to?
I can't wait to see. This is going to be a great bowl game. Great MAC team versus great Conference USA team. UAB just coming back from being, basically the death penalty. First year back, they're already in a bowl game. This is one of the great stories of college football right now. Ohio's had a very consistent year. They beat Kansas, who's not the best of teams, but it's still a Power 5 team, and that's an always impressive win for a team like a MAC team. So I can't wait to see the UAB offense go up against this MAC defense, because it is going to be one good show. And also, I can't wait to see the ESPN announcers in their Hawaiian shirts like they always do for this game, because it's just casual Friday. So I'll send it back to you, Sarah. That's what I'm looking forward to in this bowl game.
All right, guys, so that bowl game has been announced for weeks, but here are your big ones. They have been confirmed by the College Playoff Committee. First, let's start out with the Sugar Bowl. It will feature last year's national title game. It'll be Clemson versus Alabama. What do you guys think about this Sugar Bowl?
I've got Clemson in this one. I think Clemson has played very strong this year behind Kelly Bryant, and they obviously with guys like Ray McLeod, I think they're more complete than Alabama. I know it's rare to say that there's a more complete team in the country than Alabama, as they've been dominant for so long, but I think this third matchup will go to the Tigers.
Yeah, Alabama down the stretch was not playing their best. They didn't play a great game against LSU. I think a lot of people thought they'd thump them. They didn't necessarily do that. They almost lost to Mississippi State. Mississippi State led that game entering the fourth quarter. and then obviously lost to Auburn. So their toughest competition came at the end of the season, and they didn't respond as well as they normally do to it. Clemson, I honestly thought that they'd take a slight step back this year. I didn't know if they'd win the ACC or not. I thought it was still possible depending on Florida State. But to lose Deshaun Watson, who was in line to be Rookie of the Year if he'd stayed healthy, to lose Jordan Leggett, to lose their running back, Wayne Gallman, who's had a decent rookie season, to lose some of their key defensive players, Shaq Thompson, Boulware, Ben Boulware, their heart and soul linebacker, to lose all these players to the NFL, great players, and replace them immediately with Kelly Bryant, with Ray McLeod, to have a great defensive line once again, one that had double-digit sacks against Auburn in the second week of the year. This Clemson team is complete. I agree with you. And, Alabama, I'm never comfortable picking against Nick Saban, but I just think that Alabama's just a little bit off this year. I think their play calling is not the best. I think they need to use their running backs more. And I think that defensive line will be able to contain and get Jalen Hurts to the ground. So I like Clemson to win. And the third matchup in the last 3 years between Clemson and Alabama.
And, I did see the line for this game. It is surprisingly -1 Alabama.
So much respect for Nick Saban is what that tells me.
And let's think about this as well. New Orleans. From Auburn, New Orleans is about 5.5 hours. So Tuscaloosa, about the same 5.5, maybe a little less. That might be almost a home game for Alabama, which means Clemson fans are known to travel well. They are known to be very similar to Auburn fans. Both fan bases travel well and are very, very, very loyal to both of these programs. So I think Clemson will put a good showing fan-wise out at the Sugar Bowl, but I think it's almost going to be a home game like the SEC Championship yesterday was basically a home game for Georgia. The Sugar Bowl will be almost a home game for Nick Saban, and Saban's going to want revenge against Dabo. And, I think Clemson, I still agree, is going to be too much. So with that being said, with the Sugar Bowl, we are going to go to the other playoff game. You guys ready for some roses? It's going to be interesting between Georgia and Oklahoma.
I'm going to take the higher seed in this one. I like Oklahoma. I think Baker Mayfield is going to win the Heisman, no doubt in my mind with that one. And I do like Oklahoma. They're more, as I mentioned earlier, they do like the big play, and they like to throw it down the field. Baker had 4 touchdown passes yesterday against TCU, and I think that's just going to be too much for the Georgia defense.
We mentioned it earlier that this is a contrast in styles. You have that big physical SEC team that likes to run the ball and play defense versus a Big 12 team that likes to spread it out, doesn't rely on the defense necessarily, uses a high-powered offense led by Baker Mayfield. I think the Heisman winner. I like Oklahoma to win this one, but it's always interesting to see if that team that is better at the line of scrimmage, which I believe will be Georgia, if they can irritate Baker Mayfield enough. We know he's so good at getting out of the pocket and making extension plays. A lot of people say he's a little better version of Johnny Manziel. He's so good at extending the play, but, maybe Georgia is able to actually get to Baker Mayfield. Maybe they're actually make him more of a runner than a passer. And that'll be interesting, but I still think Oklahoma will win. I think it'll be a little tougher for them. I think it'll be a little low scoring compared to what Oklahoma games usually are. I will say the Oklahoma defense has been pretty bad, but has been better the last couple of weeks. TCU didn't exactly put up a bunch of points against them. Oklahoma forced a couple turnovers. So I think Oklahoma defense is playing a little better, and it'll be just enough in a kind of an unusually low scoring game by their standards.
I kind of want to point this out. Oklahoma and the Big 12 is not known for their defenses, where the SEC is very much known for their defenses. So Georgia's defense hasn't been, let's say, the most outstanding, but they have been kind of one of the most underrated programs defensively in the country this year. They were able to stop the Auburn running game in the SEC Championship, no problems, which, it could have helped. Kirby Smart even said they got a lot of help from them not having Kerryon Johnson. So we have that going on with the Rose Bowl, but you got to pick Oklahoma in this one. Baker Mayfield, I think, will be too tough. And the Georgia offense, it's always going to be tough having a freshman quarterback starting against a Big 12 team, whether their defense is good or bad. It's the Rose Bowl. Yes, Kirby Smart talked about his team getting the wow factor out at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Well, they're going to have to get that wow factor out at the Rose Bowl. Yes, it's not the most beautiful of venues by any means in the country. It is probably not going to be as nice as Mercedes-Benz Stadium by any measures. However, it's going to be an interesting one. But after the break, we'll go out to Brooks in the newsroom and kind of see what Twitter's saying about this and kind of see what the nation is saying about who they all think should have been that 4 and 5. Should it have been Alabama or should it have been Ohio State? All that coming up after the break.
This is a place where it only takes a second to imagine your future. Grasp a new concept in class. Inspire a child's curiosity. Discover a real-world solution. Seize an unexpected opportunity.
There goes Davis!
This is where you gain the preparation, confidence, and determination to succeed. This is Auburn.
So guys, we now have the playoffs set, and there's still a lot of talk about the playoffs being set and the teams that are in the playoffs. So we're going to go out to Brooks in the newsroom to kind of talk about what the fans are saying of who should have gotten that last spot, Alabama or Ohio State. Brooks, what can you tell us?
Well, Twitter is still absolutely debating, fighting over this matchup. As you can see, we've got a tweet pulled up here from a Big Ten writer. Ohio State's biggest mistake was scheduling Oklahoma instead of Mercer, taking a shot at Alabama's scheduling. Of course, Alabama didn't have the toughest of schedules, but still they got in. Skip Bayless from Fox Sports chiming in, talking about the committee chairman, Kirby Hocutt, explaining why they put Bama in over Ohio State. He's not that happy about it. On the better side of things, on the more comical side of things, the Pittsburgh Pirates AAA affiliate, the Indianapolis Indians, had this to say that this is the 4th consecutive year that they have not been included, or anyone in the International League has been included. So we may need to look at that committee. UCF football joining in. They, dang, Bama got in over us, trying to make light of the subject. They're still probably going to get a New Year's Six Bowl. We'll see where they end up. Talking about a conversation we had earlier, some of the coaching changes around. Last night, of course, Scott Frost, it was announced that Scott Frost may be returning to Nebraska today. Earlier today, sources have said that UCF is engaged in discussions with Texas A&M's coach, former coach Kevin Sumlin. Nothing has become official yet, but this is being reported as of right now. And on the bowl side, we've got unconfirmed reports. ESPN's Brett McMurphy is reporting that the Troy versus North Texas will be the New Orleans Bowl. We will try to get that later if we can confirm this, but this is what Brett McMurphy is reporting. So that's what's going on around social media right now. Back to you in the studio, Sarah.
All right, thank you, Brooks, for that insight. Now, we do have some breaking news, and we will try and get some information for you in the next coming minutes that 2 University of Georgia football players were arrested following the SEC championship. I believe I was told for DUI and possession of marijuana. We will have more details headed your way after this. The break that there have now been 2 UGA players arrested following the SEC championship last night.
Yeah, Sarah, linebacker Natrez Patrick was arrested on an unspecified misdemeanor and was alleged arrested on a charge of marijuana possession of less than 1 ounce.
And wide receiver Jason Stanley was charged with driving under the influence, possession of marijuana less than 1 ounce, after being pulled over for driving 87 miles per hour in a 65 zone.
Well, they definitely took celebrating the SEC championship too hard. Now, these players are not the star headlining players for the Georgia Bulldogs, but they still make an impact on that team, especially considering that team is now playing for all the marbles and they will be traveling out to Pasadena. What do you guys think this is going to do to the team?
I think it'll definitely affect the morale. Natrez is a starting linebacker, so it'll be interesting to see how if there is any punishment handed out, how Kirby will implement other players in to fill the void.
I don't think the guys will be affected too much. I think that if we're being honest, I think a lot of players do it and don't get caught. So I don't think it'll change much. I think George will be focused as ever. This happened. It didn't happen the night before. It happened the night after an SEC championship game. So I don't expect it to really affect them at all.
You know, you can't expect these guys not to celebrate, but I'm sure Kirby Smart wished they were kind of being a little smarter with the way they did celebrate. Now we do have some more breaking news for you. The rest of the top 25 of the college football playoff rankings have been announced. We have the top 25 and where your Auburn Tigers fall after the break.
We all do funny things under pressure.
There's no small thing when you play football in this conference.
What makes Auburn Auburn? 6 simple letters. And within a second,
There goes Davis! Oh my God! Davis is going running all the way back!
you experience it. You feel it in your bones. It's a place of legend. A home of Heisman.
Peterson, the one man to beat at the 5. He is in!
Championships
The kick is good!
are earned here. We are fearless. We are true.
Give the ball up and over and in.
All of this is Auburn. We are one. We are the loudest roar in the country.
I believe that this is a practical world.
And that I can count only on what I earn.
Therefore, I believe in work.
Hard work.
I believe in education,
which gives me the knowledge to work wisely.
And trains my mind and my hands to work skillfully.
I believe in honesty and truthfulness,
without which I cannot win.
The respect and confidence of my fellow men.
I believe in a sound mind,
and a sound body, and a spirit that is not afraid.
That is not afraid.
Not afraid.
And in clean sports
that develop these qualities.
I believe in obedience to law.
Because it protects the rights of all.
I believe in the human touch,
which cultivates sympathy with my fellow men.
And mutual helpfulness. And brings happiness for all.
For all.
For all.
I believe in my country.
Because it is a land of freedom.
and because it is my own home.
And that I can best serve that country.
By doing justly,
loving mercy,
and walking humbly with my God.
And because Auburn men
and women
believe in these things.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn. I love it.
All right, guys, so the College Football Playoff Committee has finally decided to announce who their top 25 are for this last ranking before bowl season starts. So, guys, let's start with the number 7 spot.
Number 7 goes to your Auburn Tigers.
Number 8 is USC, the winner of the Pac-12.
Number 9 comes into Penn State, who is the 2-loss Big Ten East runner-up.
Number 10 goes to the Miami Hurricanes, the runner-ups in the ACC.
Number 11 is Washington, left out of the Pac-12 championship game.
Number 12 is UCF, who now is going to be coachless for now.
Number 13 goes to Stanford, the runner-up in the Pac-12.
Number 14 is Notre Dame, obviously conference-less still, and had a big start to the season, but were not able to finish strong.
To round out the top 15, TCU, the runner-up of the Big 12, comes in at number 15. Now we do have the next 5 up on our screen down here, so let's go with number 16.
Michigan State comes in at number 16.
Number 17 is LSU.
Well, number 18, another Pac-12 team, is Washington State.
Number 19, with the coach with the best hair, Oklahoma State.
And number 20, we've mentioned the head coach a lot, Mike Norvell. The number 20 team is Memphis, fresh off a close loss in the AAC championship game.
All right, so let's talk about what we think about the top 20 so far. We are still waiting for the last 5. Think they got it right? I mean, Auburn's a pretty high-ranked 3-loss team.
They really valued Auburn's wins. And, you know, Auburn lost to LSU, which was obviously kind of the shocker, but their other 2 losses are to playoff teams, and they beat 2 playoff teams. They beat Alabama. They beat Georgia the first time. So they had, I was joking with you guys, they have a 2-2 record against the top 4 against playoff teams, which it's very rare that anyone's going to play 2 or 3 games against the top 4, but they played 4. And so that strength of schedule is very good. They have a lot of good wins. And I think they are very deserving of being that high. You know, you don't have that great of wins if you're not a top 10 team. And so to be a top 10 team, you need to have great wins. They had several of them despite the losses. So I'm not too surprised to see them at 7.
Guys, I will break in. We do have the rest of the top 25 announced. 21 coming in is Northwestern, followed by Virginia Tech, Miss State, NC State, and Boise State to round out the top 25. I find it a little interesting that Boise State won the Mountain West against number 25 Fresno State, and I guess, well, they switched spots.
Just holding a place for them. Whoever wins the Mountain West, your prize, you get ranked. Not exactly the biggest prize in the world, but small victories for the Group of 5 conference.
I really like these rankings. The one problem that I have is I do think UCF should be at least 1 spot higher. I would have put them at number 11 over Washington, but other than that, I think these are very good rankings.
You know, I see there are 5 SEC teams ranked in this. Now, is that the highest one of all the conferences, I believe, or they are tied with the Big 12 or Big 10? We'd
have to double check that, but 5 teams. Honestly, the SEC's had more before. I think a lot of people thought the SEC was down this year. I disagreed with that. I think while the bottom's pretty bad, I think there's a lot of good teams in the 4 through 7 or 8 range in the SEC, and that's proven with the back end of the top 25 there. SEC, another pretty strong year. Obviously, getting 2 teams in the playoff has never been done before. So I think the SEC all in all had a good year.
All right, so we are going to toss to Brooks. I am sure with these rankings being released, there is a ton going on Twitter. So, Brooks, what can you say, especially from the Auburn faithful, seeing that they have fallen 5 spots this week to number 7?
Well, Auburn Twitter, the whole Twitter, we're acting pretty well to the rest of these rankings besides the top 4. Of course, still a lot of argument on the top 4, but the rest of the rankings, everyone's pretty content with where they are. Southern Cal fans are kind of a little perturbed at where they're ranked, that they don't get enough respect to move up. Can't show you some of those tweets because there's a little bit of profanity in there, but everyone else is pretty much reacting well. As you can see, the top 25. One little taking a jab at Tennessee from the Alabama beating out Ohio State. This tweet from one of the Tennessee writers, of course, taking a jab at those Tennessee Volunteer fans there. And on kind of related, we are getting more unconfirmed reports of bowls coming in. Brett McMurphy of ESPN is reporting that the Boca Raton Bowl will be a home game for FAU as they take on Temple. So that's what we've got right now. Twitter, pretty content. Auburn Twitter, pretty content with where they are at number 7. We'll send it back to you in the studio, Sarah.
Well, thank you, Brooks, for that insightful information. Now, we will continue to update you. We have a little under an hour to the big New Year. 6 bowls are announced, and I think we have a pretty good feeling your Auburn Tigers will be one of them. We will fill you in on the rest of the rankings, what we know, and the possible bowls these teams will be in after this.
Fans, direct your attention to the flagpole for a special presentation.
You never really leave Auburn, because Auburn never leaves you.
Well, welcome back. We are here to break down your top 25 just ahead of the New Year's Six Bowls being announced, and hopefully we figure out what the rest of bowl season will look like in the coming hour or two. So, guys, what do you guys think about these rankings, conferences, teams? Did the committee get it right?
I think so. We talked about the top 6 earlier, and the Alabama versus Ohio State, and the call of the committee is to put the best 4 teams in the playoffs, so I think they got it right there. I think the rankings, I don't have, as a whole, much of a problem with them. It's interesting, I wonder if Central Florida is actually the best team in the state of Florida. We know that they're better than Florida and Florida State, but Miami's at 10 and UCF at 12. I know it's probably not going to happen, but it would be really cool to see those 2 teams play in a New Year's Six or any type of bowl game to kind of battle for the state of Florida. But I really don't have a problem with the rankings. I think they're pretty solid. Yeah, no big issues with them.
I don't really have any big issues either, but I do find it interesting that throughout the season you have analysts from conferences like the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the Pac-12 who say the SEC has fallen off, and it's only really been Alabama and Auburn and maybe Georgia, but the SEC has tied for the most teams in the playoff rankings with 5.
And you got to also say, first time it's been done, SEC has 2 teams in the college football playoff in the top 4 rankings. And it will be possible for an all-SEC national championship game, which means you could have Alabama versus Georgia. That means title's coming back to the SEC. What does that say about this conference?
Well, like I said, I think that the top of the conference is elite. A lot of people had problems after the top 3 or 4 teams. And like I said, I think the Mississippi States, the Texas A&Ms, the LSU of the world make the conference a lot deeper than people really believe and really think. And so to know that Alabama and Georgia have the potential to meet each other, I don't want to get into if, Auburn, Alabama is better and, if it wouldn't have been better for Alabama to be in the SEC championship, but we might end up seeing it in the playoff, and those 2 teams kind of match each other up a little bit differently than Auburn and Georgia or Auburn and Alabama, because Auburn runs more of a spread and Alabama and Georgia are typically more physical teams. So I know the rest of the country is not really wanting an SEC national championship game, the SEC bias or whatever, but if the 2 teams did play, it's kind of hard to say there's bias when they earn their way to the national championship game.
And you also have to think that we only really see Alabama and Georgia play each other at the peak of their seasons, either normally in the SEC championship game. So if they were to match up, I think it would be one of the more physical and one of the better games that we could see.
And also keep this in mind, if they were to match up in this national title game, it's going to be in Atlanta. That is almost dead center Alabama Crimson Tide, Georgia Bulldog territory. That stadium, it is going to be in it. Let's just say this does happen. Let's say the football gods have it that number 3 plays number 4 in the playoff, in the championship in Atlanta. How is that going to play out, just fan base alone?
Well, something interesting that you and I were there for yesterday is Georgia fans probably were about 70-30 as opposed to Auburn fans. And I think that a lot of people thought they'd have more fans, they've had more time to buy tickets, but I thought it would have been 55-45, maybe 60-40. It was clear difference that Georgia was much louder, had many more people there. And, for a game in Atlanta against Alabama, I was talking to a friend that goes to the University of Alabama, and he's been mentioning that there's kind of a little bit of fatigue in going. It takes a lot of money to travel out somewhere and go to a New Year's Six Bowl, to go to a college football playoff game. And so, it's kind of like they're a little bit spoiled and they've spent a lot of money in recent years. Oh, they've already had that experience before. Georgia's not been here, and I think the Georgia fans are going to be much more excited. Not saying Alabama fans aren't going to be excited. I mean, who wouldn't be excited to be in the playoff? But I'm just saying I think the excitement level, like it was with Clemson, will be at an all-time high for Georgia. And so being in the state of Georgia, I would expect Georgia to outnumber Alabama fans in Atlanta.
And kind of going off of what you said, I was here watching it on TV, and you could tell that there were more Georgia fans and that the Georgia fans were louder than there were Auburn fans. And it's in Atlanta. It's going to be a home game for Georgia, but because it's so close to Tuscaloosa and to Georgia, if we were to see that, it'd be interesting to see how both fan bases would line up.
No, and another thing, let's steamroll off of this other conferences, power conferences. Big Ten put 5 teams as well, making them tied with the SEC for the most teams in their conference ranked in the top 25. What does that say about this Big Ten conference as well?
I think for a lot of the season, people would have told you that if one conference was going to finally get 2 teams in, it would have been the Big Ten. Penn State was very highly ranked. They had a Heisman contender. Michigan with Jim Harbaugh was expected to do good things. Obviously, they had a quarterback injury that kind of derailed that. Obviously, Ohio State's been up there since Urban Meyer's gotten there. They've been a top 5 team. They were the team in question this year. And then you never know what a team like Michigan State will do, who's been in the college football playoff before and played Alabama. So I think that a lot of people thought maybe Ohio State-Penn State combination. Of course, Wisconsin was the one that actually ended up having the best chance at the end of the day. I think that for all the world, halfway through the season, you would have thought that if there was finally a conference, it would have been the Big Ten. Obviously, they kind of cannibalize each other a little bit. And so, yeah, the Big Ten, I think, is really good at the top, just like the SEC. I think the difference in the conferences, like I said earlier, I think the middle of the SEC is a little bit better than the middle of the Big Ten. You look at the middle of the Big Ten, it's teams like Northwestern and Purdue, Iowa. And granted, Iowa had a great game against Ohio State. It's probably the reason why Ohio State's not in the playoff, but Iowa still lost 4 or 5 games at the end of the day. So I wasn't really impressed with the middle of the Big Ten. And the top just kind of beat each other up just a little too much. And so Big Ten's still a great conference. I think they're probably second best. But I think the depth of the league is the difference in what makes the SEC still a better conference, at least for this year.
I definitely agree with that, and that the Big Ten is the number 2 conference with teams like Ohio State and Penn State. But I definitely agree with what Ryan said. The middle of the SEC is more solid than the middle of the Big Ten because you have teams like Mississippi State and you have teams like maybe not Florida this year, but normally that can push out 7 or 8 wins, while teams in the Big Ten are only pushing out 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, and then you look at the ACC. They have put in teams pretty regularly into the top 25. This year they come in with 4 along with the Pac-12. I think the ACC, it should have been much stronger than it was, with Florida State coming in preseason ranked number 2, facing Alabama that first game of the year and losing their possible Heisman star contending quarterback that very first game. That conference could have been a lot stronger than it was. And that Florida State-Miami matchup could have been a lot bigger than it was. And you could have seen, I could have seen if Florida State did not lose Francois in that first game, you might have 2 SEC teams, 2 ACC teams, and that top 4. What do you guys think about that?
Obviously Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield would have been tough to get over, but yeah, Florida State's been the bell cow for the ACC for a number of years since they joined, to have Miami finally get back to what it was when they were in the Big East in their first couple of years in the ACC, I think you would have thought with that, and Clemson, North Carolina had a down year. They've been ranked in recent years. They had 20,000 injuries, it seemed. You had a couple teams that they usually rely on to be very good that kind of slumped a little bit. You did get better season from NC State. You did get a good season again from Virginia Tech, who had been so good for so long with Frank Beamer. But I think the ACC had an okay year. Any time that Florida State, which is usually their most important team, has the year they had, you would expect them to be maybe even a little worse. So they did get the team in the playoff. They still had some good performances from Virginia Tech and Miami. So I think the ACC is still in a good place. I don't expect Florida State to be down long. We'll see who they end up hiring to replace Jimbo Fisher. But with Francois coming back, next year will be great for the ACC, I think. So I think they're still in good shape.
I definitely agree. I think if Francois doesn't get hurt, you're talking about the definite possibility of 2 SEC and 2 ACC teams. But it's really hard to count out Baker Mayfield and Oklahoma. Putting them in there, you would have maybe a Miami at number 5 if they had been able to keep going. But I really like how we were able to get 2 SEC teams in there for the rankings. And if Miami maybe doesn't lose to Pitt, then they could have been higher. And if Kelly Bryant had stayed healthy versus Syracuse, maybe we put Clemson as even more of a favorite against Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pac-12, they did put 4 teams in, but as we said, lots of coaching changes out there. You might have Herman Edwards coming in at ASU. You have Chip Kelly coming in at UCLA. They've got a bright future, and they've got a powerful conference that might be a force coming in the future. Like, you have the SEC now and Big Ten obviously are the clear favorites and strongest conferences this year just by number of teams alone. But in the coming years, you're going to have a push for, well, this Pac-12 conference. They're going to be back on top like they have been in the Pete Carroll years at USC with Reggie Bush and those types of teams. You might see those teams again coming out of the Pac-12. What do you guys think about this possible Pac-12 dominance coming forward?
Well, the self-proclaimed Conference of Champions has not exactly been that in football the last couple of years. Obviously, like you said, USC's been a little bit down what they usually are. UCLA is usually a top 25, top 15 program, but the last couple of years under Jim Mora have been very disappointing, considering that Josh Rosen was supposed to be a first-round draft pick and still will be a first-round draft pick. So, yeah, with Chip Kelly coming in, he did a great job with Oregon, like we said, and that's going to put them back because they had been really good for 5, 6, 7 years with Chip Kelly and the first year or two of Mark Helfrich and Marcus Mariota, and they had been disappointing the last 2 or 3 years. So I think you're right. I think the last couple of years of struggles are behind them. Anytime a conference has a bunch of coaching changes, it's a new opportunity for new blood, for big names, for big hires. And I think they definitely got that with Chip Kelly. Like I said, Herm Edwards has the potential to be really, really awesome for them or really bad. He might not know what he's doing being back in college. But I think that they're headline hires. They're important hires for the Pac-12, and I think they will see better days.
And you can't forget about the teams at the very top geographically of that conference in Washington, who just a year ago was the number 4 team in the country. Now, they did draw the short end of the stick and have to play Alabama in Atlanta, but they were definitely a solid team last year with Jake Browning at quarterback and John Ross out there at wide receiver. And Washington State this year, too, played very well. They were ranked high during some parts of the season, but I think that the combination of Washington, Washington State, the Chip Kelly UCLA, the Herm Edwards ASU, Sam Darnold with the possibility of coming back if he doesn't want to go pro yet. He thinks there's still a couple things to work on with his game, but I do think that over the next few years, the Pac-12 could be on the rise.
All right, guys, you guys had some really good points now with the top 25 out, and we are now looking at my watch just about 30 minutes away from the big New Year's 6 announcement. What team surprised you the most this season?
I definitely think Miami. I know they had a really rough end to the season and really got plowed in the ACC championship game by Clemson, but Miami was not great last year. They were better. They've obviously had a lot of struggling seasons since around 2005. They had Al Golden not work out. They had Rainey Shannon not work out. So to get Mark Richt, there was a lot of optimism with them because they are one of the traditional powers in college football. And to finally get back on that national stage this year, I saw too many things, honestly, but a lot of things about the turnover chain, really getting a lot of attention to that program. And so I think Mark Richt is building that program back into a winner. I think it was important for the ACC. I think it's important for college football. There's always the 5 or 6 teams in each league, whether it's professional or college, that is really good for that league when that team is good. And I think you can argue Miami is one of those. So it was important to see them bounce back. And lots of carnage at the top. We mentioned 3-loss Auburn being all the way up to number 7, which is kind of unprecedented. So I think there weren't necessarily a lot of great consistent teams, but I think there were a lot of teams that when they played well had great potential and could do great things. And so I think that maybe that was a little unlike other years because I feel like you had 1 or 2 really consistently dominant teams. But I think this year you had 7, 8, 9 teams that when they played their A game were top 4 potential. They just couldn't do that on a weekly basis.
On the upside, I do believe Miami was the surprise of the year, but sort of on the downside, I want to say that Penn State was my surprise of the year. They were projected to be very high, possibly in the playoff rankings at 2 or 3, and Saquon Barkley was supposed to win the Heisman at the beginning of the year, and over the summer, everybody was saying he was the front runner, and he was for the majority of the season, but then you had a fall towards the end of the season.
You know, and me being from Pennsylvania, I say it time and time again, that slide for Penn State and my family felt pretty good, just knowing from my family and getting texts, they were pretty happy about that slide. But it was really sad to see because Saquon Barkley, he is such a special talent. And since they started that slide, you haven't really heard his name much around the country and in the Heisman talk. I think he should still get that call on Monday, come for the Heisman. He deserves it. I also think Kerryon Johnson, despite the loss, they were putting up similar numbers. If you're going to make Kerryon in the conversation, you got to stick with Saquon. And I felt that Penn State slide was really surprising and really sad. But My most surprising team was Notre Dame. I did not expect Notre Dame. They were number 3 at one point. I did not expect them to have the season that they did. Notre Dame has kind of had mediocre teams for a very, very, very long time since their national championship loss to Alabama. But they finally started to kind of put the pieces together. They did the slide. They lost big to Miami, which did not do good things for them towards the end of the season. And not being able to win a conference title obviously does not give them any more push to say, hey, we need to be in the top 10. We want a conference. But I really like also that new realignment with the ACC with Notre Dame, where most of their sports, they're still independent, but they are playing all these ACC teams, making these statements. And I think this year was a really good stepping stone for them, playing all these really good ACC teams, and them finishing the season at number 14 is very, very good and very surprising to me. So with that being said, where do you think some of these New Year's 6 bowls, what teams do you think get to go where? Just a quick preview before we get to there until we get to talk to Brooks as well.
Well, obviously there's 12 slots being 6 games. One slot that's usually taken outside of the top 12 is the group of 5 champion. I think it's something around 18th. As long as they're top 18, they're guaranteed a spot. UCF is 12. So I think it's very real possible you'll see just the top 12 go straight chalk. You know, maybe not 5 versus 6 or 10 versus or 11 versus 12, but I think you'll see all the top 12 make the New Year's 6. Like I said, I really, really want to see UCF play Miami. I think the battle for the state of Florida would be fun. I think that's a game that UCF could get really excited about, and I think with slumping Miami, I might give the group of 5 team a chance in that one. They've kind of run over some rough times. Western Michigan kind of got outmatched last year, but I would give UCF a chance in that. It'd be interesting to see where Auburn goes. Obviously, coming into the SEC championship, I think the expectations were that they would handle Georgia a second time and be out in Pasadena, likely for their playoff game, but that's not to be. I think that we heard that the not the Fiesta Bowl, the Peach Bowl was a very real possibility. I heard someone say going to Atlanta for the Chick-fil-A Bowl, and as an Auburn fan, look, Mercedes-Benz Stadium is incredible. It was a great experience, but I'm thinking a little something more festive for the bowl game. So I'm hoping it's not Atlanta.
I feel like you're on the same page with a lot of Auburn fans, and definitely, let's just say Auburn, especially now that Alabama has reached that playoff, it looks like Auburn, there were talks about the Peach Bowl. It looks like they might now go to the Orange Bowl, which that's Miami. That'd be fun. And also, if Auburn were to play Miami in the Orange Bowl, whether it is to be or not, which there are also rumors that is Miami and Wisconsin, that's basically a home game for Miami. But I would really like an SEC Big Ten matchup. We won't have one in the playoff. I really think they will put Auburn against Ohio State or Penn State for that. And I really think it's either going to be Cotton Bowl, Orange Bowl, or like you said, Peach Bowl. I mean, yes, covering Auburn. I would like to see a different venue. I would really like to go to Jerry World, being a reporter covering this team. I think the team would really enjoy it. I think it would actually feel more like home to them, just for the sheer size of that Jumbotron that they have. Auburn's is the second largest compared to that. I think that might be more home-like feel than Atlanta to them. So I really hope Auburn gets a good draw in this, and I think a lot of Auburn fans would like something a little better than an Atlanta game, but I think a Big Ten SEC matchup needs to happen in these New Year's 6 bowls.
I have a question for you two. So how would you feel as the home team, as the team having to play it, if the committee does decide to put Miami in their home stadium, in their home city? Would you be bummed as a Miami player? Man, I want to go somewhere else. I want to see the country, or I'm glad to be at home. And conversely, for the road team or for the other team, if Wisconsin has to travel all the way down to Miami, granted, Miami's a great city, fun city, we're basically playing a road game against the home team. How would you guys feel if the committee did that?
Hayden, I'm going to let you start with that because that is a tough situation.
As the home team, if I was playing, I would love to play at home because as we see with Auburn at Jordan-Hare, if it is loud and the road team or the away team in bowl season, you can get in their head with all that noise, it's going to be a definite advantage. Home field advantage is a real thing, and Auburn definitely proved that this year. So being the home team, I would be excited for it, but kind of bummed that you don't get to travel and maybe see Dallas, or if you haven't been to Atlanta yet like Auburn has. But yeah.
I think as a Wisconsin fan, I'd be really excited to escape the cold of Wisconsin to go to Miami. I remember my parents were in Miami for the Super Bowl between the Colts and the Saints, and I got stuck at home with my uncle when we had back-to-back blizzards, and there my parents are in Miami, in South Beach, on the beach, in 70-degree weather. Well, I'm getting a phone call. Yes, I am looking outside. There's 3 feet of snow. So for these Wisconsin fans, they are not going to like the idea of the road game, but they get to go somewhere warm. They get to, if the winter is like anything that can be, they will want to get out of that Arctic air. So that would be really good. I understand Miami might want to go somewhere else, like to Atlanta, Dallas, maybe even to Fiesta, if that's a possibility for them, just to see somewhere else. But they have the opportunity to get that home field advantage. And yes, it is the Orange Bowl, and it might not be for all the marbles and making a championship, but that is going to be their championship for this year. That is a big stepping stone for this program moving forward. And I think that if they do get the Orange Bowl, they should look at it as an added advantage and look as, hey, we can do this really good.
And one more thing on the Orange Bowl is I think they should put UCF in it. And the reason I do is we know UCF is going to 1 because they're the highest group of 5 team. But if they send Central Florida out to Glendale, Arizona, they're going to have maybe 10,000 fans, maybe, because it's going to be a long travel, and they already have a small fan base. But if you put them in Miami, near their near the home base of Orlando, I just said home base, near the home stadium of Orlando, then they can have basically the extent of their fans actually go to the game, and I think that'll help the attendance.
It's a very good point, Ryan. Now we are going to start looking at what Twitter is saying. Toss to Brooks at some point, but we will get into your top 6 coming up after this.
Fans, direct your attention to the flagpole for a special presentation.
You never really leave Auburn, because Auburn never leaves you.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
I hope that you've been able to learn a strong work ethic surrounded by character, integrity, perseverance, so that when your 1 second comes, you'll be prepared for it.
Chris Davis. 45, there goes Davis.
Your 1 second, our 1 second is now. And our lives have been guided by the principles of one of the greatest academic institutions in the country, Auburn University.
I believe that this is a practical world.
And that I can count only on what I earn.
Therefore, I believe in work.
Hard work.
I believe in education,
which gives me the knowledge to work wisely
and trains my mind and my hands to work skillfully.
I believe in honesty and truthfulness,
without which I cannot win.
The respect and confidence of my fellow men.
I believe in a sound mind
and a sound body and a spirit that is not afraid.
That is not afraid.
Not afraid.
And in clean sports
that develop these qualities.
I believe in obedience to law,
because it protects the rights of all.
I believe in the human touch,
which cultivates sympathy with my fellow men.
And mutual helpfulness. And brings happiness for all.
For all.
For all.
I believe in my country.
Because it is a land of freedom.
And because it is my own home.
And that I can best serve that country.
By doing justly,
loving mercy,
and walking humbly with my God.
And because Auburn men
and women
believe in these things.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn. I love it.
The New Year Six are going to be announced along with the other bowls. So we are going to toss it out to Brooks in our newsroom to get an update on what Auburn fans are hoping for their Tigers to be in come bowl season. Brooks?
Hey, Sarah, thanks. I've been out here for a while. Y'all been talking for a while. Let me get some words in edgewise here. Come on, guys. So we've been looking at Auburn Twitter. People are trying to predict where we're going to go since the Auburn Tigers are number 7. Where will they end up? Some people have been saying maybe the Cotton Bowl. The Cotton Bowl is quite a good possibility. Dallas, that'd be a great place to go. Great atmosphere out in Dallas. Great football atmosphere. It'd be a great chance for Auburn fans to get to experience Jerry World before they go there in 2 years to face Oregon to open the season, the 2019 season. But one bowl that's really interesting right now that is being brought up is the Capital One Orange Bowl. The Auburn Tigers could be traveling to the Auburn Tigers could be traveling to the Orange Bowl. This would be a great bowl game for them, no matter who they're playing. If it's a potential matchup with Miami, it's a home game for Miami, basically. It would be great for the Auburn fan base. There's a big Auburn fan base in South Florida. Auburn trying to take their talents to South Beach. It will be fun, no matter where they end up. Meanwhile, back on the other side of Twitter, reactions still coming in from the top 25. Everyone still talking about all the rankings. Mountain West really excited to get their champion in there at number 25. The Boise State Broncos had a great game last night against Fresno State. Top 4, a little fun jab here. Robert Flores, the MLB Network reporter, saying the top 4 is not as good as this top 4, including Macho Man Randy Savage and Nature Boy Ric Flair from the early days of WWE. This is a quality tweet. Also, the SEC Network taking a little jab in there. Alabama, only team to get in all 4 years, getting a little DJ Khaled action down here at the bottom with Nick Saban. And on a more serious note, Brent McMurphy, ESPN, reporting that Fresno State will take on Houston in the Hawaii Bowl. These are unconfirmed reports, but we are hoping these are true because this would be a great matchup. I'd love to sit down and watch this on Christmas Eve. Back to you in the studio, Sarah.
All right, thank you, Brooks, for that entertaining update. Now we are just about 15 minutes from the New Year's Six being selected. Where will the teams fall? Who's in? Who's out? I mean, I think from everybody's discussion, Auburn doesn't want to go to the Peach Bowl. It is a New Year's Six, but it is the first New Year's Six that Auburn wants to be in. Now, if Auburn were to match up against UCF, I don't feel like that's a nice matchup for UCF.
Well, it's not, but it's a lose-lose for Auburn because, it's similar to what Alabama and Utah had the first year of Nick Saban way back in 2008. You win the game, you did what you were supposed to do. You were playing a Group of 5 team. You lose the game, you just lost to a Group of 5 school that does not have the caliber of athletes and physicality typically of a SEC team. So, not to mention, look, I can't stress this enough. The stadium is gorgeous. There's nothing wrong in Atlanta other than the fact we've already been there. And bad experience our first time in there game-wise. We want to go somewhere a little different where, me and Sara are seniors. We'd like to, go somewhere a little more festive. Maybe, I know you want to go to Dallas. I want to go to Miami particularly. Nothing's official yet. We've seen some projections, and Auburn is projected to go to Atlanta. We would have preferred Atlanta in a week after when they're projected. We would have been fine then. But, we'll see when it comes out in about 15 minutes.
Say if Auburn came into the SEC Championship, just say one loss team, there was a chance they still could have made it in at that 4th spot. And then that second game in Atlanta would not be looking too bad. But it's just a bad taste in their mouths. Now, also keep in mind, I'm pretty sure most of the Auburn players, I know when they went to the Birmingham Bowl, which Birmingham Bowl, people are like, what is that bowl? It is not a bowl anybody really wants to play in. There are tons of bowls out there that are kind of like the new, hey, you competed, here's a prize. Here's a bowl game. You won 5 games. You now have a certificate that says you went to a bowl. But this Birmingham Bowl, not to knock it at all, Auburn did play Memphis, I believe, a couple years ago.
Yeah, I joke every time that they single-handedly destroyed Paxton Lynch's draft stock because he was being talked about as potential #1 pick, and he went like 20-something to the Broncos after that, and still not seen the field hardly at all. So you're right, Sarah. The Birmingham Bowl, I'm from Birmingham, but I can attest it's played at Legion Field, which is the most rundown stadium you will ever see. And obviously that's on the heels, if you're an SEC team going to that bowl, of a pretty bad, disappointing season. So not exactly where you want to go.
Well, now let's also keep in mind about this. We are Auburn students, which means we also take classes with these players. And we have teachers who are very, very, very passionate about their Auburn football. I had a Spanish teacher that year, and she was in love with football. Those football players, she would come in every Friday. Hey, you guys ready for the game? You guys ready? How'd the game go? And like ask a million questions, really excited. Well, one of the players who is still on Auburn, I remember after Selection Sunday, she came in, she's like, how do you feel about this game? And he's like, man, I don't even want to play in it. I feel embarrassed to even be at like a lower level bowl game. So I feel like if Auburn would get to the Peach Bowl, it'd kind of have this similar taste in their mouth. Yes, it is a Peach Bowl, it's a New Year's Six, and not to knock the Peach Bowl, it is a New Year's Six game, but for the Tigers, I feel like if they were to go somewhere else, it might not be the similar bad taste, man, I don't even want to play in this. What do you think, Hayden?
You know, I'm from Birmingham too. I understand. We actually went to rival high school, so I understand the whole Legion Field being run down. It's comparable to the Peach Bowl, only in this scenario. I love the Peach Bowl. I have not made it out to Mercedes-Benz Stadium yet, but Auburn definitely does not want to go back to Atlanta, even if it's been a few weeks since the SEC championship game. I think they would need to go out to Dallas, maybe go down to Miami for them to get that taste out of their mouth and end the season on a positive note.
Yeah, and that is a sour taste. You don't want to go back to the stadium that you just lost the most important game you played of the season. It would bring back some bad memories, and you know, I would hope that the motivation level would be there because you are still playing a New Year's Six, but you wonder, when you're playing a lesser opponent, not to knock UCF, but still not the athletes of an SEC team, you wonder if they just kind of not care like they should, and that opens yourselves up to an upset.
Which I could see, I think, actually one of the best situations is the Fiesta Bowl at New Year's Six. It changes every year.
It is.
So I really think the best situation for Auburn would be to go to that Fiesta Bowl. #1, Glendale, Arizona.
And have a fiesta.
Absolutely, because the last time they went to Glendale, there was a fiesta. So I really think that might be one of the best places Auburn can go to play, would be there. The last time they played there, it's a good place for them. And it gives them the motivation. They'll probably will play a Big Ten team, which will probably, if looking at the rankings, will more than likely be a Penn State or Michigan State, which would be a really, really good matchup to watch. But if it's the Peach Bowl, not to knock the Peach Bowl, it's going to have a bad taste in their mouth. They might not be as prepared, where if they're going out to Glendale, they'll be like, oh, we won a national championship here. We're playing this team. They'll have a lot more motivation to travel that far because they can take a bus to Atlanta. They're going to want that plane trip will make all the difference, I think.
And, I mean, a bowl game is kind of like a vacation. You know, we talked about UAB going to the Bahamas. What better vacation than to go to the Bahamas for a football game? And, you know, a bowl game is, the way they treat bowl games, it's like a celebration of your season, your accomplishments, you know, the months of hard work, and then 12 tough football games, maybe 13, you play in a conference championship game. And you're kind of given all these gifts, and you get there several days early, and you have some press conferences, and you just get a time to relax while it's your Christmas break. And for Auburn, you know, some of these players are from Atlanta, some of these players are from Georgia, Alabama, very near Atlanta. That's not exactly something new. It's not a new experience. It might not necessarily be a vacation for most of the players. And so just thinking about where I would want to go as a player, you're right. Out to Glendale, Arizona, I guarantee you most of the players have not been to Arizona. Miami is always going to be a fun city. Even Texas, you know, Texas one of the biggest states. Everything's bigger in Texas. And just to see another part of the world. But to see Atlanta again, where you've already been, where you've already played an important game, there's just no extra appeal for that for Auburn.
And you know, I did work in Houston last spring. It is projected or has been reported that Houston will go to the Hawaii Bowl. And I am asking myself, Auburn, why could you have not done a little bit worse and gone to the Hawaii Bowl? Because that is a true vacation bowl game. Can we agree that we all wish Auburn that's the one lower non-New Year's Six bowl that I think no reporter would really feel bad traveling for?
I would definitely not feel bad going out to Hawaii to cover that game.
Well, if you're not first, you're last. So since we're not first, or if you're not first, you're last. So since we didn't win, since we're not first, it's like being last. So you might as well lose a couple more games and go to a better venue, right?
All right, well, we are going to announce your New Year's Six coming straight ahead. We will answer any more questions that we get. Log on to our website, eagleeyeauburn.com, and also go onto our Facebook page, Eagle Eye Auburn TV, and please, if you have questions, post them there, and we will try and get your answers before the New Year's Six Bowl is released. All that straight ahead. Welcome back. It is finally time, the time you have been waiting for, the New Year's Six Bowl announcement. And we have our first one coming in. That is not the college football playoff. So, what do we got here, Ryan?
So we've got the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. We talked about this was a possibility for Auburn in Dallas. Is the one Sara wanted to go to. It will be the Pac-12 champion USC Trojans versus the Big Ten champion, number 5, Ohio State.
That is certainly going to be a big one. What do you think about this matchup, Hayden?
You know, I actually really like this matchup. I think you have two solid quarterbacks in Sam Darnold and JT Barrett, even though JT's a little banged up. But if I had to pick right now on paper who I think is going to win, I'd give it to Ohio State.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to be fired up after not making the playoff. I think we all agree they shouldn't have been in, but they're not going to feel that way. They're going to feel like they should be in. They're going to try and prove the committee wrong. I think Sam Darnold's been great, but USC is still, in a way, I think underperformed. I know they won the Pac-12. I think that if they won the Pac-12, they probably expected to get into the Final Four. So I do like Ohio State.
All right, guys, and now coming in, we have the Fiesta Bowl, which will be between number 11 Washington and number 9 Penn State. Well, it looks like Auburn will not get to go Fiesta out in Arizona. So what about this matchup, guys? I mean, they're both at-large bids to this bowl.
Yeah, Washington not getting in the Pac-12 championship game, but still ranked number 11, still having a very good season. Miles Gaskin, a really good running back. Jake Browning had a good year, maybe not what people would have thought after his really good freshman year last year. And then Penn State, we talked about them in a way being disappointing. Saquon Barkley was ESPN's pick midway through the season for the Heisman. That obviously kind of fell off the tracks. Trace McSorley, a very undervalued quarterback. This will be a fun one. I like Penn State narrowly. I just think that for no other reason, I think the Pac-12 is just a little weaker than the Big Ten, so I trust a higher-ranked Big Ten team over a higher-ranked Pac-12 team.
I like this game too. Washington, obviously, after coming off the college football playoff appearance last year, maybe not the year they were expecting with Jake Browning returning, and they do have a very solid running game. And then you have Penn State coming in off what could have been a college football playoff appearance with underrated quarterback Trace McSorley and running back Saquon Barkley. But in this game, I'm going to take Washington. I feel like Washington could come in, especially in a neutral environment in Arizona, and maybe give it to the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, well, we are hearing reaction from our control room right now, which means we are probably about to hear where Auburn is going to end up. I mean, our live feed in is a little bit behind theirs. So, where do you think that is based off of their reaction?
I'm fearing for the worst. I'm smelling Atlanta, and I'm not excited about it. But we'll see. I mean, still New Year's 6, and we should get it up in just a moment. But yeah, based off the reaction, which was very loud, and it's probably not good for Auburn.
Well, you know how the Buffalo Bills said when they went to Atlanta for one of their Super Bowls, peaches, baby, peaches. And if Auburn's in the Peach Bowl, sadly, oh, no, it is not Auburn. It is the Orange Bowl.
But that will pretty much signify, though, that we are going to Atlanta. And because the only 2 teams left, we mentioned UCF has to be in a New Year's 6, so they're going to be in. They will be playing Auburn. But, yes, the Capital One Orange Bowl is going to be between number 6 Wisconsin, a narrow loss in the Big Ten championship game to Ohio State, and the University of Miami. We talked about them. The U is back. The turnover chain is very prevalent this year, and they will be playing on their home field in the Orange Bowl against Wisconsin.
Yeah, honestly, for Auburn, this is kind of a blow to see that they are not going to the Orange Bowl or the Cotton Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl, having the Big Ten take all of those, which I'm a little surprised we are not, so far, have not seen a Big Ten SEC matchup, because that seems like the matchup everybody wants. Nobody, like, no offense to Pac-12, the Big Ten, Pac-12, there are 2 matchups already. Why not switch it up a little? What do you think? What was the committee thinking with this so far?
I mean, we could see it in a lesser bowl. There's a report that LSU will be playing Notre Dame, so I was thinking LSU might do that. We don't know where Mississippi State's going. Maybe Mississippi State's matched up against a Northwestern or something like that. But yeah, you're right, Sarah. I feel like these 2 conferences were pretty clearly the best 2 conferences. You'd expect to see a top team from each of the 2 conferences. So why not see an Auburn, Wisconsin, or an Auburn, Ohio State? So I know that's a little disappointing I think for a lot of fans. And then as we are about to see, Auburn probably going to be a little disappointed. But the control room just freaked out again. So
we're going to assume that that's what Auburn fans have been fearing. I mean, for Auburn students, it might be a little nice because they can save on a little money just by being so close, take a day trip up. But they have been, yes, we do have it confirmed. Auburn will be going to Atlanta to play UCF in the Peach Bowl for their New Year's 6 game. I mean, it's the Peach Bowl again. We are slightly disappointed because it is almost a lose-lose situation for Auburn.
I'm upset at this game, but I do think it's going to be a good game. People forget that UCF has the #1 offense in the country, so they are definitely going to put up points, and Auburn is capable of putting up points. So if you are a fan of offense, this might be the game that I would tune into.
It's been the Auburn season this year, I think, has been the most up and down season I can recall. You start the year, big expectations, lose to Clemson in a very poor offensive performance. You start to get on the right track a little bit and then lose an inexplicable game to LSU. And then you have 2 of the best wins that Auburn's had maybe in their history. They beat 2 #1 teams. They beat them convincingly against their 2 arch rivals. Everything is going just incredibly perfect for Auburn. They're staring down the barrel of a playoff appearance. And then they go to Atlanta and they get beat by one of those rivals pretty handily against Georgia, taking them out of the playoff picture. And so in the span of 2 days, they go from hoping to go to Atlanta and playing for the national championship to going to Atlanta to play probably the least exciting team in the New Year's 6, and once again playing in Atlanta again. A very disappointing 2 days for Auburn. And not to add on to it, but we don't know what Gus Malzahn's going to do. So this could really be a destructive day for Auburn, quite frankly.
Honestly, it really could. And also, let's add that Auburn is slated to play in a Chick-fil-A kickoff again in Atlanta to start the 2018 season. So they're going from Atlanta to Atlanta to Atlanta.
I mean, Sarah, by that time, that's pretty much Auburn's home field. I mean, by the 3rd game, honestly, people will just start moving to Atlanta and just camping out there. And the players will know that stadium. That'll be a home game by then.
Yeah, absolutely. Hayden, how do you feel about this one?
Well, I have yet to be to the stadium, so maybe I'll get out there and see it, but I know these guys weren't too happy about Auburn going out either. when they're playing UCF or next year, whoever the committee decides for them to play in the kickoff game. But Auburn really had a chance to make this a special year, and just mistakes cost them big down the road.
You know, and I'm getting words in from family and friends and reaction from around the country saying Auburn did deserve better than this and that they should have been able to travel a little bit further than Atlanta. I think we are going to see a lot of bum faces around campus tomorrow, and if you run into any players on campus, they're probably going to be very, very bummed out, especially for what's to come for Malzahn. But again, you might see some happy people from Auburn because, one, a lot of people that go to Auburn are from Atlanta, so you don't have to pay to travel. So that's one of the big things.
There's definitely benefits, but I think that, like I said, the bowl game is usually a festive time. It's usually a celebration of the accomplishments, and so you kind of want a festive atmosphere. You kind of want a vacation. And Atlanta, while it might feel like a home, it's not going to feel like a vacation.
And let's also add, so yes, I was in Atlanta. I got to cover Auburn this past weekend like I have been all season, and they have been quite a team to follow, and it's been an honor to be able to say that I have covered their season this year. But one thing on the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, our post-game meal was Chick-fil-A. Now, Chick-fil-A is hosting the Chick-fil-A Bowl, or in the Peach Bowl, so it's Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Now, let's put this in perspective. They ran out of Chick-fil-A at the end of the game. I did not get my dinner that I had not eaten since very early in the day. So I would really hope that Chick-fil-A is more prepared, that there is plenty of Chick-fil-A for the hundreds of people. And it is on January 1st, and I don't have a calendar in front of me, but that could be pretty bad if it is a Sunday.
That's a great point. I just died inside a little bit when you just said that, so I'm really hoping not. But if it's not on a Sunday, as you check the calendar, for,
it is a Monday.
Woo! Anyway, so knowing Chick-fil-A as a company, Sarah, they're going to pre-bless your next meal. They're going to have double of what you ordered. You will be taken care of at the next Chick-fil-A game.
And let's say, students, you're going to the game. It is hosted by Chick-fil-A. Usually these games, they will give seat cushions filled with free stuff to thank you for coming to their game. Students, fans, there will probably be some free Chick-fil-A coupons there with you, because there was for the Sugar Bowl if you went. I do remember getting a free breakfast sandwich coupon, and that was pretty nice. So Auburn fans, don't worry. It is not a Sunday. Chick-fil-A should be open in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But we are now going to toss it out to Brooks in the newsroom for a social media update about the buzz that is going on around these New Year's Six games announcements. Brooks, what can you tell us? All right, so we are not going to be able to toss right out to Brooks at this moment, but let's kind of break down these games. So we got some big games. We got the Cotton Bowl between USC and Ohio State. You got the Fiesta Bowl between Penn State and Washington. And then you have the Orange Bowl with Miami and Wisconsin. Which one of these games is most intriguing to you?
You know, I don't think it'll get a lot of love, so I'll say this is probably not what I'm actually looking to the most, but I do want to see the Miami-Wisconsin game just because I think they're two evenly matched teams, and I'm really interested to see how Miami responds to losing a just inexplicable game to Pittsburgh, a below 500 team, and then getting just destroyed by Clemson in the ACC Championship game. So I want to see how a team like that, similar to Auburn, how they're going to have to respond to crushing disappointment. Because Miami would have been in the playoff if they beat Clemson. I don't think many people would dispute that. They were playing for a playoff spot as well. It's another situation where they really didn't expect to have this kind of year. So how do they respond? They did better than expected, but they could have done even better, and they didn't. So I'm kind of interested to see that game because I think both teams play a similar style of ball, and both teams, even Wisconsin, I mean, they were playing to get in the playoff as well. So two teams that would probably be very disappointed. We'll see which one's more motivated.
What about you, Hayden? Which matchup of these New Year's Six are you most interested in if you count out the playoff?
You know, I'm going to agree with Ryan. I really do like the Wisconsin-Miami matchup. I watched the end of the Ohio State-Wisconsin game last night, and I liked a little bit of what I saw from Wisconsin. I felt that Have they had a little more time in the game, they probably could have come back and won. And I feel like they're very evenly matched with Miami. And if Miami can wear the turnover chain at least 3 times in that game, I think they'll pull out with a win.
You know, I'm going to disagree with you guys. I find this USC-Ohio State matchup in the Cotton Bowl going to be much more entertaining. I think both teams are going to be a little disappointed they didn't make the playoffs, so that will have enough fuel to the fire. Now, we are able now to go to Brooks in our newsroom to get some reaction that is going around based around these New York 6 Bowls. Brooks, what can you tell us?
Hey, we got a mic trouble. I'm back now. Not a lot of excitement from the Auburn fan base on Twitter right now for the Peach Bowl. It's in Atlanta. It's a New Year's 6 Bowl, so nothing to complain about, but it's in Atlanta. It's an hour and a half away, so it'll be a great home environment, hopefully, for the Auburn Tigers. They can get some fans up. We got a tweet here from earlier about, some more anger about Alabama getting in over Ohio State in the playoff. ACC football's loving their chances like they're getting into the rankings. Got a team in the playoff with Clemson. They've got three other teams ranked. Coaching, little on the coaching side, A&M. Jimbo Fisher arrived at Texas A&M this morning to a rousing band and the red carpet out there. He's being welcomed fully by this Texas A&M fan base. The USC Trojans fan base is very happy, or is happy right now about getting into a New Year's 6 Bowl. Hope maybe we talked about they were a little mad they weren't getting enough respect earlier. Getting into a New Year's 6 Bowl may help them with that. A bowl to report, unconfirmed, the Citrus Bowl. It looks like it'll be a rematch of Notre Dame and LSU from 1 or 2 years ago. I'm not quite sure when that was played, but this is an unconfirmed bowl game right now. And, of course, finally, our favorite Auburn Twitter account, Drunk Aubie, coming in red hot with this tweet for the announcement. So that's what's going on Twitter right now. Back to you in the studio, Sarah.
Thank you, Brooks, for that. Now I am getting more reaction from Auburn fans saying, well, I would have preferred the Bahamas Bowl or the Hawaii Bowl because people are saying Auburn got a better bowl game last season than they did this season. And this season they have a much better team than last year. So what do you guys think about this bowl compared to last year's Sugar Bowl?
Well, also lots of expletives are being used to describe this. Auburn, I think, is a better team than last year. I think that they, once they lost Shaun White, they really just became offensively anemic. They had a very promising first drive of the Sugar Bowl last year with Shaun White. Then he got banged up, couldn't really do anything against an average Oklahoma defense from there. We were kind of thinking, if Auburn wins, they're going to probably be playing Oklahoma again this year, another rematch, and have to face Baker Mayfield again. But obviously the Auburn defense should not have as much trouble with the UCF team. Not to say UCF is not great, because they're a very good team. They went undefeated, and at any conference, at any level, it's hard to go undefeated. It's hard to be focused for 12, 13 games in a row. But I think this Auburn team is better than last year's team. I don't think there's any doubt. They have an even better defense. Their defensive line. I joked with my friend. I watched the Iron Bowl, and this is on the next to last drive when Alabama's got about 5 minutes left, and they're trying to make it a one-score game and get back in it. Auburn is switching defensive linemen every 2 plays, and I'm like, you're going to wear the Auburn defensive linemen out from just having to run off the field, because they literally are 8 deep at defensive line. That's why I'm confident that they'll be back next year and be strong, and so I think that this Auburn team is more complete on both sides of the ball. I love their chances against UCF. The only wild card factor is, do they want to be there? And I have a problem thinking that they are going to want to be there. It's going to be tough to say that they're going to be as motivated as they should be. So I am worried about that aspect of it. But if they show up motivated, if they play to the best of their ability, they're going to be better than UCF. They will beat UCF.
Anytime you have an undefeated team, you have to pay respect, and you have to acknowledge that they've been, like Ryan said, they've paid attention and they've been focused for 12 or 13 or however many games it's been. But Auburn definitely did have a better team this year, and they did deserve to go to a better bowl, maybe even possibly the playoff. So if Auburn can maintain focus and stay focused and maybe use the SEC championship loss as a motivation to end the season off strong, then I feel confident that they'll come out of Atlanta this time with a win.
And let me add a twist of fate. So UCF is losing Coach Scott Frost. I think he did say he will coach UCF through their bowl game, from what I have been informed. Well, let's add a twist of fate. Apparently UCF is targeting former Texas A&M coach Kevin Summerlin to take that job. Now, say Scott Frost decides not to coach the bowl game and they make the hire for someone, they're back playing a familiar coach. That makes the game like a little bit more intriguing, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
It would be very abnormal for the new head coach to coach them in the bowl game, but he can at least offer his input. He can at least say, all right, well, my team played Auburn this year. This is what we saw. And that would be a big detriment to Auburn. That's something that schematically, maybe Kevin Sumlin sees. Yeah, Auburn's really weak at guarding the outside run, or at least that's weaker for them. Find creative blitz packages to not give Jarrett Stidham time to throw. We'll see if there's a healthy Kerryon Johnson or Cameron Petway. Obviously, Kerryon was not 100% yesterday. Obviously, Cameron Petway did not play. But in a month, I'd like to think that both of them can get healthy. So that would definitely be a new problem for UCF to face. But yes, Kevin Sumlin could offer a lot of insight and make it a little bit trickier than it normally would have been.
Kevin Sumlin could definitely offer pretty good insight, as he has played Gus multiple times. So him coming in and maybe giving Scott Frost some advice if he does go through with it and coach the bowl game, to say that, hey, Auburn does this very well, so you need to do this to combat that, would be an interesting take on it.
We're going to go back to Brooks in our newsroom for another update. Brooks, what can you inform us of this time?
Well, we've been perusing Twitter, and we found this. This is a tweet that just got sent out by our producer/director, Jordan. We see you're not paying attention in that newsroom as you're sending this out, kind of jabbing at UCF, and also a little play on the Chick-fil-A slogan. So we see you, Jordan. We know you're not actually paying attention in there. That's why we're just running wild. We'll be right back with more bowl analysis right here on the Eagle Eye TV Bowl Special.
I believe that this is a practical world.
And that I can count only on what I earn.
Therefore, I believe in work. Hard work.
I believe in education,
which gives me the knowledge to work wisely
and trains my mind and my hands to work skillfully.
I believe in honesty and truthfulness,
without which I cannot win.
The respect and confidence of my fellow men.
I believe in a sound mind
and a sound body and a spirit that is not afraid.
That is not afraid.
Not afraid.
And in clean sports
that develop these qualities.
I believe in obedience to law,
because it protects the rights of all.
I believe in the human touch,
which cultivates sympathy with my fellow men.
And mutual helpfulness. And brings happiness for all.
For all.
For all.
I believe in my country.
Because it is a land of freedom.
And because it is my own home.
And that I can best serve that country.
By doing justly,
loving mercy,
and walking humbly with my God.
And because Auburn men
and women
believe in these things.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn. I love it.
Fans, direct your attention to the flagpole for a special presentation.
You never really leave Auburn, because Auburn never leaves you.
Well, welcome back. Sorry for the long break, but there have been a lot of bowls announced in the last 30 to 20 to 15 minutes, even some really short bowls. So let's start kicking it off with bowls that have been sourced, not totally official, but we're 99.9% sure they are. So let's start with the New Orleans Bowl, where Troy will be taking on North Texas.
In the Boca Raton Bowl, Lane Kiffin and FAU will take on Temple.
And a note on that one, though, it's another home game for FAU.
So we're going to run through a few more bowls right here. Hawaii Bowl is going to be Fresno State and Houston. Would have loved for Auburn to go to Hawaii Bowl. Citrus Bowl is going to be a pretty big matchup. Two powerhouse programs, Notre Dame and LSU.
We got the Alamo Bowl, which is Stanford versus TCU.
In the Camping World Bowl, we got Virginia Tech and Oklahoma State.
And the Texas Bowl, we only know that Texas will be in it. We're still waiting on the second team in that bowl.
Which is pretty fitting for Texas to be in the Texas Bowl. Now the Holiday Bowl out in San Diego, which let me tell you is a beautiful bowl to be in. I remember when Nebraska played in it when I was about 13 and I said I want to go to college that plays in that. This year it's going to be Michigan State versus Washington State.
In the Arizona Bowl, we have New Mexico State and Utah State.
The Las Vegas Bowl, that would have been a good one for Auburn to go to. Boise State and Oregon.
The Cure Bowl, which is a very interesting name, is Western Kentucky versus Georgia State, two very interesting small teams. Interesting name for them to go to as well.
In the Outback Bowl, we have Michigan and South Carolina.
The Tax Slayer Bowl will be Louisville, Mississippi State. Would have been a little bit better, Hayden, as you mentioned during the break, if Nick Fitzgerald would have been healthy, but still we'll see Lamar Jackson take on an SEC defense.
In the Dollar General Bowl, you got Toledo taking on Appalachian State.
In the Sun Bowl, we have Arizona State and NC State.
The Pinstripe Bowl, which is played in Yankee Stadium, you got Boston College and Iowa.
Not gonna lie, I kind of wish Auburn played in that one. It's close to home, and I am a Yankees fan, so I haven't been to Yankee Stadium in quite some time. Now the Belk Bowl is going to be Wake Forest versus Texas A&M.
In the Independence Bowl, all we know right now is that Florida State will be making an appearance.
And in the Military Bowl, a shocker to many that Navy is in the Military Bowl playing Virginia.
Isn't there another shocker with the Armed Forces Bowl where Army will be playing? I don't know if they've announced who they will play, but it's not surprising to see military schools in the Military Bowl and the Armed Forces Bowl. So guys, what do you think of these bowl games so far coming up?
I like them. I think the one that I'm most excited for, honestly, is Michigan and South Carolina. I really like the Big Ten SEC matchup, and I think Will Muschamp and his defense will kind of challenge Jim Harbaugh.
That you kind of stole my thunder. I'm really excited about that game. I think those are two teams that play a lot alike. Michigan having a little bit of a disappointing season, South Carolina having an impressive season in the weaker SEC East. Like I said, I would have been really intrigued by that Louisville-Mississippi State game. Nick Fitzgerald being out, when Mississippi State had to put in their backup quarterback. They did nothing on Ole Miss. Ole Miss didn't even play that well, had some turnovers, and still was able to win the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving night, which, by the way, fun having a college football game on Thanksgiving night, in my opinion. But so I still look to see what Lamar Jackson will do against his SEC defense. He did much better against Kentucky this year, but last year he had some problems against Kentucky. Louisville lost to Kentucky, and he played LSU in the bowl game last year and did not have a lot of success. So Mississippi State has an above-average defense. Most SEC teams do. So I'll be interested to see that one.
I'll be most interested to see Texas A&M in the Belk Bowl. That will be very intriguing just because of Jimbo Fisher. Whether he coaches or not, I'm not totally sure if he will take over totally by then. But the fact that he will have a role in this bowl game, it could really tell a future of what could be to come from Texas A&M. If they can do really well in that bowl game, it's going to look very impressive going into next season. Now, we'd like to toss it out to Brooks in the newsroom. Just because we went through all these bowl games, some of these names are quite interesting. We're going to send it to Brooks to tell us about a little bit more about these names. Brooks?
Well, Sarah, I've been looking at the bowl list. I've been trying to figure out which one of my bowls are my favorite. I picked out three that I really like. First of all, the Dollar General Bowl, I really like that one, mainly because it's from my area. I'm about 45 minutes west or east of Mobile. So this is the local bowl game I can go to every year. Even though it's not the best of teams, I can still go to it. Another one, always the classic, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Who doesn't love playing for a bowl of potatoes? It's always fun. It's always a great game. It's one of the early games in the bowl season. It's always a good one. But my absolute favorite is a new one this year. This is the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl. This is my absolute favorite name because I don't know what a Gasparilla is. I'm assuming it's some sort of tree. But the sponsor, Bad Boy Mowers, is on point this year. I just love a bowl that's sponsored by some of the most outlandish things. It was like the Duck Commander Independence Bowl was a few years ago. Though that was a great bowl game. So those are some of my favorites. Back to you, Sarah.
All right, thank you, Brooks, for those very entertaining bowl names. I mean, let's add in our own picks. What is your favorite bowl name?
Oh, I don't know. I was mentioning to you, I think it's the famous Idaho Potato Bowl because until basically last year, I didn't know that there was anything famous about A, Idaho potatoes, or B, potatoes in general. Fries are great, but are potatoes really that famous? So for me, that one's been around for a while too. So most bowls change every couple of years to get a new sponsor, but that one has stuck with the Idaho Bowl for a very long time. So famous Idaho Potato Bowl.
I'm a big fan of the Poinciana Bowl, mainly because I can't pronounce the name and people always make fun of me for it. So I don't know if we got the teams up there for it, but that's one that I'll definitely tune into.
I'm definitely a fan of the Boca Raton Bowl because they now have a new sponsor. It's very long, very confusing, and very bizarre. I cannot think of the name off the top of my head because it is that specific, that interesting, and just you look at the name when you see it on TV when FAU is playing, you get to hear Lane Kiffin, you'll be like, what was that name again? You'll do a double take at the TV and you'll be drawn into it. So that one's definitely a very, very interesting name. Especially, I also kind of like the Cure Bowl because
Well, we saw both teams are from smaller conferences and don't have as good of records, so both those teams kind of need a cure to jumpstart their program a little bit. But yeah, the Boca Bowl this year, I mean, let's be honest, if Lane Kiffin wants to sponsor it, he can. We can just call it the Lane Kiffin Bowl this year. I mean, as long as he doesn't jump ship to another job, Lane Kiffin's probably going to pull out endless numbers of trick plays in that game and try and make it as special as possible, so looking forward to that.
I wouldn't be surprised if Lane Kiffin himself threw a pass in that game.
That'll be quite interesting to see. All right, so when we come back, we will preview Auburn's bowl game against UCF as best as we can. It is going to be hard to kind of look at UCF as a whole, considering they aren't even an SEC team, and we will recap everything that we have gone over today after this.
I believe that this is a practical world.
And that I can count only on what I earn.
Therefore, I believe in work.
Hard work.
I believe in education,
which gives me the knowledge to work wisely
and trains my mind and my hands to work skillfully.
I believe in honesty and truthfulness,
without which I cannot win.
The respect and confidence of my fellow men.
I believe in a sound mind
and a sound body and a spirit that is not afraid.
That is not afraid.
Not afraid.
And in clean sports
that develop these qualities.
I believe in obedience to law
because it protects the rights of all.
I believe in the human touch,
which cultivates sympathy with my fellow men.
And mutual helpfulness. And brings happiness for all.
For all.
For all.
I believe in my country.
Because it is a land of freedom.
And because it is my own home.
And that I can best serve that country.
By doing justly,
loving mercy,
and walking humbly with my God.
And because Auburn men
and women
believe in these things.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn.
I believe in Auburn and love it.
Recently, our country has witnessed catastrophic devastation. Hurricanes and flooding have upended lives and livelihoods.
Across this great country, Americans have answered the call.
That special calling that compels us, when others are down, to step up and do whatever it takes.
America's at her best when, against all odds, we come together and lift each other up.
Please donate to oneamericaappeal.org. America needs you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We are almost at the very end, considering almost all has been said and done regarding most of the things. We'll start with the top 5 rankings. To recap everything that has happened, number 1 goes to Clemson, 2 Oklahoma, 3 goes to the SEC champion Georgia Bulldogs, 4 Alabama sneaks in by a hair, and to round out the top 5, Ohio State, the Big Ten champion, just outside.
Looking at number 6 through 10, number 6, we have the Big Ten runner-up in Wisconsin. Number 7, Auburn. Number 8, Pac-12 champ USC. Number 9, Penn State. And number 10, Miami.
11 through 15, number 11 is Washington. Number 12 is Central Florida, the undefeated champions of the AAC. 13 is Stanford, who lost the Pac-12 championship game. Number 14 is Notre Dame. And number 15, the losers of the Big 12 championship game, TCU.
Now to round out the top 20, we have Michigan State coming in at 16. LSU at 17, Washington State at 18, 19 goes to Oklahoma State, and to round out the top 20 is Memphis.
The last 5. Northwestern at 21, 22 goes to Virginia Tech, 23 goes to Mississippi State, 24 goes to NC State, and the last team in the top 25 rankings, Boise State.
Now to recap the biggest games of bowl season, because really everybody wants to see high caliber bowls. So let's start with the first big New Year's Six game.
So the Cotton Bowl will be USC Pac-12 champions versus the Big Ten champions, Ohio State.
The Fiesta Bowl will be played between Washington and Penn State.
The Orange Bowl will be the battle of the runner-ups, with Wisconsin taking on Miami.
The Peach Bowl in Atlanta, Central Florida, in Atlanta, and Auburn.
Now let's go for all the marbles, starting at the Rose Bowl, where everybody wished Auburn would have ended up, is number 3 Georgia taking on Oklahoma.
I'd have been okay if Auburn went here too. Number 4 Bama takes on number 1 Clemson in the Sugar Bowl.
And then obviously the national championship game will be played in Atlanta on January 8th. And that one, it could be a tough game to go to.
Yep, and I think the playoff is really correct here. I think that's the 4 best teams. You know, obviously Auburn would have loved to have played in Atlanta on the 8th of January, not the 1st of January. But Georgia played a great SEC championship game. They changed their game plan up. They deserve to be there. And then obviously with Alabama not playing on the final weekend, we didn't know how that would impact them. If Ohio State could have won by a big margin, I think they would have been there. But I think they got the 4 best teams. I'm really excited to see the games. Like I said, 2 versus 3, the Georgia-Oklahoma game, contrast in styles. And then 1 versus 4, you know, geographically pretty close teams, but a rivalry that's been brewing solely because of matching up in the playoffs. And so for the 3rd year in a row, you'll see Alabama, Clemson, and very excited about that one as well.
All right, well, we are going to toss it out to Brooks for one last newsroom update. Brooks, what do you have for us?
Well, for our last segment, I wanted to take a look at some of my favorite bowl games that I'm going to be very paying attention to. I'm going to watch them early in the year. I love this New Orleans Bowl, Troy versus North Texas. It's a great matchup, especially since we're here in the state of Alabama. Great matchup to watch in-state team. Boise State, Oregon in the Las Vegas Bowl will be a great matchup. Oregon coming back, trying to get back on track. One of the great stories of college football this year is UAB taking on Ohio. And another bowl, of course, is the Lane Kiffin Bowl. It's Florida Atlantic versus Temple. I can't wait to watch that. I just love Lane Kiffin. His personality, he's a great college football personality. I can't wait to see what he does in this bowl game. And of course, the Auburn Tigers against the UCF Knights. It'll be a great matchup in Atlanta. And I wanted to leave you on one final thing. I just really enjoyed this. This is A+ work by the SEC Network. I'll send it back to you. I'm going to watch this for a while.
Thank you, Brooks, for that last update. Thanks for being with us tonight. Now, we are just going to do a slight preview of the Auburn-UCF Peach Bowl game. So, guys, what do you think of this game? I know we've talked about it a lot. What do you think is going to happen here?
As I mentioned earlier, I think Auburn's the better team. I think despite the Georgia game, Auburn's going to be really good up front. They're going to be more physical. They're going to be faster than an AAC team. The biggest question and what will determine this game is if Auburn wants to be there. If Auburn wants to be there, they're going to win the line of scrimmage. They're going to use their athleticism. They're going to win. But if they don't want to be there, if they're like, oh, woe is me, we didn't make the playoffs, we didn't win the SEC championship game, oh, why are we playing in Atlanta again, this is pointless, then UCF's going to have a great opportunity to win. Scott Frost, as you mentioned, will be coaching them one final time. They're going to be emotional, and it's a dangerous situation for Auburn to play an underdog, emotional team. So Auburn should be favored. If Auburn plays like they want to be there, they should win. But if they even let off the gas just a little bit and find a little bit of not wanting to be there, a little bit of dread, then UCF is going to be primed for an upset.
I think this could possibly be a trap game for Auburn. I think it's obviously going to be Scott Frost's last game, like Ryan said, and the players are going to be very emotional, and they're going to want to go out and get a win for their coach. But if Auburn can come in focused, give Carry-On and maybe Petway a little time to get healthy and not as banged up like we were against Alabama, I think that Auburn is definitely going to come away with a win.
Yeah, I definitely think Auburn can win this game. I mean, it's going to be hard against the emotional team, but also let's consider Auburn might be coachless. They might not have Gus Miles on. This is still a developing story. Possibly is Gus going to stay at Auburn or go to Arkansas? So that might have a lot to do with it. That could motivate Auburn in different ways to prove to if Gus decides to leave, those players might rally and kind of say, hey, we're a lot better. Thanks for leaving us. So they could easily, that could be a big motivating factor for that team, is to say, wow, our coach left us. Let's prove him wrong that he should have stayed here with us. So I think that'll be definitely an interesting game. Do you guys think you will be in attendance of that game?
I know I will. I'm going to try and find some way, whether the student ticket lottery we have, or I think the price of these tickets will be less than the SEC championship game, which we're going for $500, $600, $700 on the resale market. One other thing to note I just thought was kind of funny. So Central Florida has lost their coach. Scott Frost is leaving. Yet we're more sure who's going to be on the Central Florida sideline for that game than we are the Auburn sideline.
That is very true. Hayden, will you be making a trip out to Atlanta?
You know, I may. If I'm able to find tickets, like Ryan said, I may make the trip out to Atlanta just to see the stadium and see if Auburn can pull it out.
Well, that stadium is awesome. So thank you for joining us tonight on Eagle Eye Sports Bowl Selection Special. Please stay up to date with all of your Auburn sports news on eagleeyeauburn.com, and you can follow Eagle Eye Auburn Sports on Twitter at EETV_sports. From all of us at Eagle Eye, have a good evening. Thanks for joining us.